You are live streaming before 30 billion netizens across the globe, telling them to believe in science, yet moments later you step onto a reed to traverse the vast Yangtze River, causing the Jiangnan police to panic and scramble for an explanation. Everyone, please believe in science. Crossing the river on a reed is merely a skill. With enough practice, you all can do it too. Yet, when you witness a once-in-a-century drought leaving the people to face a failed harvest, wandering in despair, you point your finger toward the heavens, and in an instant, torrential rain screams down upon the earth. This leaves the Meteorological Bureau unable to sit idly by any longer. Everyone, do not worry, this is merely special effects, isn't it? It is not until you stomp your foot into the ocean that the homeland of the neighboring island nation is instantly swallowed by the rising tides, leaving the international community paralyzed with terror and the entire world in a state of shock. Even the leaders of Huaxia are forced to plead with you to cease, as the fabrications can no longer be sustained. You are the 99th successor of the great celestial master, yet in this era the Daoist sect has withered, declining to the point of struggling to find a single meal in 3 days. By chance, you discover the world of live streaming and resolve to broadcast your wandering journey, spreading the teachings of the Tao while traveling on foot. Shouldering the heavy burden of restoring the sect, you swear to sow the seeds of Taoism into every corner of the world. Having made your resolve, you immediately initiate the broadcast. The stream's title is clearly displayed, Wandering to Spread the Tao 100 miles a day on foot. Moments later, you don your weathered, faded luggage, your toes lightly touch the ground, and in the next heartbeat, your silhouette blurs like a gale, racing toward the foot of the mountain. Within the live stream, the few passers-by who happen upon the title are first stunned into silence, and immediately thereafter they cannot help but burst into laughter, viewing this as nothing more than a desperate ploy for attention. After all, even a motor vehicle requires 3 or 4 hours to cover 100 kilometers, let alone relying on one's own 2 feet. Furthermore, it is currently the peak of the dog days of summer, with the sun so scorching it could sear the very earth. Standing still is already unbearable in such heat. To go out and walk, is this not simply seeking to be roasted into a dried husk? 100 miles a day, is it really that impressive? Does your family even know you're doing this? This is nothing. I wager that in less than half an hour, this Taoist priest will be forced to admit defeat and quit. The live stream room remains sparsely populated, with the screen filled with comments waiting to mock your failure. But in the next second, your movement descending the mountain leaves everyone so astonished their jaws drop to the floor, burdened with your luggage. Enduring the scorching sun, you continue your journey. After traversing a flat mountain path, a steep stone staircase stretching for hundreds of meters appears before you. Facing the waves of ridicule flooding the screen, you remain entirely unfazed. Adjusting your breath, you suddenly stomp your foot, your figure blurring into a shadow as you descend the mountain. Mount Qinglong is not a famous tourist destination, but it still attracts many hikers and mountaineering enthusiasts. You move with such velocity that as you pass, the tourists on the path only catch a glimpse of a passing shadow. Before they can even discern who it is, you have already vanished at the end of the staircase. This extraordinary speed leaves every traveler in utter shock. The livestream chat room erupts in an instant. Unbelievable. It must be special effects. No one can descend a mountain at such a blistering speed. Within a few short minutes, the viewer count in the live stream surges like a rocket. From the sparse few who were there initially, it has climbed directly to 500 or 600 people. The comments multiply so rapidly that they become impossible to follow. White question marks swarm the screen, nearly threatening to crash the interface. The mountain stands nearly 1,000 meters above sea level. A normal descent usually takes at least over an hour. Slow hikers often take up to 2 hours, yet you have covered nearly a third of the distance in a single minute. A few minutes later, seeing the base of the mountain approaching, you finally exhale and slow your pace. By this moment, the live stream is in a complete frenzy, the screen flooded with messages of awe. Without stopping for the entire duration, you have descended to the foot of the mountain in just 8 minutes. Master, that was too fast. How on earth did you manage that? Asking for guidance, you pause for a brief moment to catch your breath. Observing the lively atmosphere in the chat, you curl your lips into a smile. Everyone, you must believe in science, you say while clenching your fist. You offer the viewers behind their screens a look of encouragement. This remark leaves the audience completely baffled. If this is what can be explained by science, then I wouldn't be stuck lying at home all day. There is definitely a production team behind this. Master, please explain yourself, you read, noticing a provocative comment. You take the initiative to clarify. This Taoist has been alone from start to finish. There is no support team whatsoever. Having said this, you pan the camera in a full circle, ensuring the audience clearly sees that there is truly not a single soul around you. Rested and ready, you do not delay any further. By now, the number of concurrent viewers in the live stream has stabilized at around 2,000. Most are captivated by your movement, which possesses the grace of an immortal descending to the mortal realm. There are many among them who wish to see just how long you can endure. 40, it is as scorching as a colossal furnace. Let alone walking outdoors, even lying at home with the air conditioning on feels stifling. You do not even have a sun hat for protection. Daoist, I admit you possess some skill, but ultimately you are still a mere mortal of flesh and blood. You cannot withstand such torment. Return home and rest early. Do not let yourself be roasted alive. Daoist, send us your location. I will send you some incense to ward off the heat. The screens are flooded with comments of concern, yet you seem to have no intention of stopping, continuing your relentless trek. 10 minutes have passed, and you are still walking. 30 minutes have passed, and you have yet to halt your pace. In the blink of an eye, an hour has elapsed. It is now 3 p.m., the moment when the temperature is at its peak and the sun is at its most ferocious. Is this truly happening? You have been walking for an entire hour and still have not surrendered? Has everyone noticed? The Daoist has walked for so long, yet he does not appear to have shed a single drop of sweat. Throughout the remainder of the journey, you focus primarily on the path, occasionally glancing at the live stream to exchange a few words with your followers. Even so, the popularity of the broadcast does not wane, and the number of live viewers continues to climb steadily. The sun gradually sinks toward the west. You gaze up at the sky and let out a sigh, debating whether you should spend the night out in the open. Suddenly, your eyes drift toward a small village not far away, and you immediately change your course to head toward it. Does the Daoist intend to enter the village to seek lodging? I suspect it is not merely lodging he seeks. He might even be begging for a meal. On the path leading into the village, you do not forget to educate the audience in the live stream regarding the tradition of begging for alms in the Daoist sect, distinguishing between major alms and minor alms. Seeking major alms involves finding those with benevolent hearts to accumulate merit, whereas seeking minor alms is, to put it plainly, asking for a meal. Furthermore, there are rules to this practice. One may visit a maximum of 7 households for a single meal. If all 7 households refuse, one must simply endure the night in hunger. With these words, you arrive before the gate of a house. Just as you are about to step forward to knock, an elderly woman with silver hair emerges from within. Upon seeing your Daoist robes, her eyes brighten and a look of profound respect immediately crosses her face. Daoist, may the immeasurable life and virtues of the Buddhas be with you. You smile, press your palms together, and offer a nod. This poor Daoist is on a pilgrimage to spread the teachings. Seeing that the sky has turned dark, I happen to pass by and wish to make the bold request of lodging for the night. If I am causing any inconvenience, please forgive me. Hearing this, the old woman beams with joy, and you were momentarily stunned by the old woman's overwhelming hospitality. Upon following her inside, you discovered that the altar in her home was adorned with a wooden statue of the Daoist deity, Dao De Tianzun. Only then did it dawn on you, and it was no wonder she had been so remarkably welcoming. Before long, a spread of steaming hot food was served on the table. While eating, you noticed the old woman's haggard expression. Upon inquiring, you learned that the village crops had withered in large patches due to a prolonged drought. Hearing her lamentations, you nodded in silence. Throughout your journey here, you had already observed the severe state of the parched fields surrounding the village. The villagers were forced to carry water to the fields every single day, otherwise all the rice would surely perish. Reflecting on this, a resolve began to take shape within your heart. The Tao follows the path of nature. Since this pious woman has granted you shelter, it is only right that you repay her kindness without hesitation. You retrieved from your luggage the horsetail whisk made of fine silk that has accompanied you for many years. With the whisk in your hand and Daoist boots on your feet, you quietly ascended to the rooftop. No sooner had you stepped onto the roof than a wave of intense heat assaulted your face. The tiles remained scorching, still retaining the searing heat from the day. With temperatures so high and not a drop of rain for half a month, the laboring farmers truly have it difficult. You could not help but lament that this wretched weather was unseasonably and cruelly hot. The audience in the livestream room immediately empathized, questioning what the Daoist priest intended to do. Could he truly be attempting to summon rain? Do not jest, this is the 22nd century. Had he mentioned artificial rain, it might be believable, but the act of summoning rain is far too preposterous. Standing upon the roof, you paid no heed to the debates unfolding in the live stream. You drew a deep breath and shouted in a resonant, steady voice. As the wind began to stir, you lowered your head slightly, your expression composed. Your left hand swiftly formed a magical seal. Your right hand flicked the whisk with precision. As you finished your incantation, a refreshing spring breeze emerged from nowhere. It swept across the stray locks of hair on your forehead. Immediately after, your Daoist robes began to billow as if caught in a gale, even though there was no wind, or was there? Indeed, the wind had arrived. Witnessing this scene, the audience in the live stream was utterly stunned. You felt a flicker of satisfaction, knowing your divine technique had taken effect. Without pausing, you continued to cast the seal and flick the whisk once more. This time, the wind intensified abruptly, causing your robes, which had previously only stirred, to flutter violently. Leaves within a radius of several dozen miles rustled intensely, and the tree branches swayed incessantly. Heavens, a wind has truly been summoned. Heavens above, could it be that this man truly possesses the power to summon the wind at will? The audience was struck with complete astonishment, and the comment section grew even more frenzied than before. Sensing that the moment had arrived, you continued to weave hand seals with both hands, softly chanting incantations. With your horsetail whisk waving incessantly, you finally uttered 2 words in a low, resonant voice. Let it rain. In an instant, the world shifted. The clear blue sky was rapidly consumed by encroaching dark clouds. A fierce gale began to howl, and the very air became stifling and oppressive. Moments later, the rhythmic patter of falling water echoed. Heavy raindrops struck the parched earth, instantly transforming into a torrential downpour. Thunder rumbled as lightning tore through the pitch-black sky, a display of power truly terrifying to behold. Over 10,000 viewers in the livestream witnessed this sudden storm, all of them holding their breath in unison. Amidst the somber darkness and the howling gale, the torrential rain stirred within the hearts of everyone present a profound shock and an indescribable sense of reverence. Daoist Master, please speak. Is this merely an effect, or is it truly real? This is too frightening. It must surely be a coincidence. The Daoist must have checked the weather forecast, knowing it was going to rain, and deliberately climbed to the rooftop to put on a show. Contrasting with the astonishment and heated debate of the audience, you simply stood on the rooftop, horsetail whisk in hand, quietly observing the heavy rain, a satisfied smile gracing your features. Looking out at the long parched land, you smiled faintly. This could also be considered an act of benevolence. The heavy rain continued to fall outside, and though you had ended the live stream and retreated to your room, the audience remained, reluctant to depart, still engaging in heated debates within the comment section. Your video of the rain-calling ritual was being fervently shared by the viewers. After a single night of spreading, it had gone completely viral. Headlines such as Daoist priest summons rain and wind rising and rain falling on command dominated the trending searches across all major platforms. The comments under the video were diverse and varied. There were internet trolls quick to slander, alongside casual observers offering objective analysis. Yet almost everyone remained in agreement. Your display of calling the wind and summoning the rain was merely a coincidence. Even if it were only a coincidence, you had achieved widespread fame and your popularity had soared. Meanwhile, at the first light of dawn, you had already risen. The elderly couple had also awakened early. The two of them opened the main gate, witnessing their crops invigorated by the rainwater, and stood frozen in their tracks, their wrinkled faces filled with utter disbelief. Old man, I told you already, I dreamt of an immortal descending from the heavens to bestow rain upon us. Do you believe me now? Seeing the elderly woman's moved expression, you offered a faint smile, bid a simple farewell, and continued your journey toward the north. You began your livestream as usual, though merely 2 minutes into the broadcast. The number of concurrent viewers in the room had already surpassed 10,000 and continued to rise at an exponential rate. Seeing such a sudden influx of people, you were slightly surprised, glancing through the comments to understand the situation. As it turned out, the video of your rain summoning ceremony from the previous night had gone viral across the internet. Countless gift effects flooded the live stream, and numerous corporate accounts appeared, frantically commenting to offer you a contract. This display of immense influence left the over 30,000 people in your live stream stunned. Heaven above, has the Daoist priest truly become this popular? I might just quit my job and become a priest right now. Faced with these relentless contract offers, you remained unmoved, deciding only to continue your path forward. After 2 arduous days, you finally reached the outskirts of Jiangnan before the sun set. You stood on the southern bank of the Jiangnan outskirts. To enter the city, you had to cross an overpass. Daoist priest, where have you arrived? Why does this place look so familiar? Isn't this Jiangnan City? Acknowledging the viewer's astonishment, you continued across the overpass, officially stepping into the territory of Jiangnan City. Daoist priest, it is dark out. Why don't you stay at my place tonight? My bed is incredibly large. You glanced at the comments in the live stream and shook your head with a smile. The heavens and earth are vast. Where is there not a home? Taking the sky as my blanket and the earth as my bed, this poor priest has no particular requirements for lodging. Especially since wearing these Daoist robes and frequently consuming mountain spring water, several days without sleep is no great difficulty for me. You shrugged helplessly. Unlike in the countryside, finding a home to lodge in within the city would likely not be so easy. Thus, you found a park near a nearby commercial center, set down your belongings, and sat cross-legged. You began to circulate the breathing technique from the Chongshan chapter of the 5 Daoist arts, feeling your entire body surge with profound ease and comfort. Yet, in stark contrast to your composure, the over 100,000 spectators watching you sit cross-legged in deep meditation, everyone present was caught between amusement and bewilderment. If other streamers were to witness this, they would likely be seething with indignation. To abandon a live stream of over 100,000 viewers just to meditate and sleep, this is a true waste of traffic. Yet, strangely, not a single soul among those 100,000 viewers left your stream. In fact, the number of concurrent viewers was even slowly climbing. Heavens, who exactly is the streamer here that has already fallen asleep? Leaving us abandoned in the live stream is truly unreasonable. More than 100,000 people are watching a Daoist priest sleep, but the scene that followed made it impossible for the audience to remain calm. You sat cross-legged with a serene expression, and with each rhythmic breath, plumes of white heat began to emanate from your nostrils. Heavens, what on earth is this? The Daoist priest is emitting hot air from his nose. Does he not resemble a boiling kettle, steam billowing from its spout? Is he brewing a pot of boiling water within his own body? Before their astonishment could fade, the transformation occurring within you left them utterly speechless. What began as mere gusts of hot air transformed in an instant into faint, wispy white mist. The mist was faint, yet unmistakably visible to the naked eye. It is truly baffling. What is actually happening here? Is the Daoist priest truly practicing cultivation on a live broadcast? The audience in the chat was completely stunned. Everyone scratching their heads in confusion. The account belonging to the Far East Academy of Sciences was flooded with notifications. Many viewers even attempted to mimic your actions on the spot, inhaling and exhaling smoke through their noses. Although both acts involved exhaling through the nostrils, the result compared to yours was like the difference between heaven and earth. Taoist priest, open your eyes and explain. Is this merely a visual effect or is it genuine cultivation? Taoist priest, please teach us. I want your brother to learn how to exhale mist as well. A barrage of gifts sent the popularity of the stream skyrocketing, propelling it to the top of the Jiangnan City livestream rankings. At that same moment, Li Feifei, the director of the network division at the Jiangnan City Police Department, received a private message. Jiangnan Police, I wish to report something. Someone is live streaming cultivation and the account behind it is yours. Seeing this message, Li Feifei furrowed her brows, unable to suppress a mocking laugh. You are quite the storyteller. Cultivation, you say? Let me see you perform it then. Driven by curiosity, she clicked on your profile. The very next second, the smile on Li Feifei's face froze. The account had no biography, no previous posts, only the avatar of a handsome Taoist priest, yet the follower count had reached over 700,000. Upon seeing the live viewer count reach 100,000, Li Feifei's eyes widened in sheer disbelief. Moments later, her gaze locked onto the broadcast screen, where she saw you sitting cross-legged in meditation, exhaling faint wisps of white mist from your nostrils, ethereal and dreamlike, possessing a genuine sense of immortal aura. Especially when she witnessed the screen overflowing with comments begging the Daoist to teach them the path of immortality, Li Feifei was left completely stunned. What era is this? Surely one must believe in science, must they not? Heavens, what on earth is going on? This absurd spectacle left Li Feifei unable to suppress a vulgar outburst. She truly could not fathom why 100,000 people were being brainwashed by a single Daoist, with so many even willing to pay tributes. Li Feifei scrutinized your every movement, watching for quite a while without discovering any traces of visual effects. The energy emanating from your nostrils was unimaginably authentic. Yet for someone raised on modern scientific education like Li Feifei, how could she easily believe in such preposterous myths as Daoist cultivation? After pondering it over, she firmly categorized you as a fraudulent streamer. Thinking this, she decisively called the bureau chief to report the entire situation within the livestream in detail. After hanging up, Li Feifei kept her eyes glued to the livestream screen, fearing you might commit some act that violated regulations. After all, there were 100,000 people watching, and once it involved pyramid schemes or fraud, the consequences would be unimaginable. She even clicked the follow button on your account to keep a closer watch. The comments in the live stream exploded instantly. Good heavens, what is happening? Why has the Jiangnan police entered the live stream? Just as everyone was in awe, you finally opened your eyes slowly and exhaled a long breath. Finishing the circulation of your breathing technique, as you regained your composure and prepared to end the stream, you suddenly noticed that the atmosphere in the chat was amiss. After scanning the comments, you realized that the manifestation caused by your breathing technique had been mistaken by netizens for true cultivation and had coincidentally been witnessed by the local police. For a brief moment, you cleared your throat awkwardly and spoke with feigned seriousness. Please, everyone, believe in science. In this world, there is no such thing as cultivation. As soon as these words were spoken, the chat exploded once more. Daoist, stop denying it. We have all seen it with our own eyes. Please, at least leave a shred of dignity for yourself. Do you not see that the Jiangnan police are still in the room? No, we absolutely must not let the Daoist get arrested. You initially intended to provide a clear explanation, but the momentum of the fans veered so far off course that you nearly sabotaged yourself. Helplessly, you sighed and added one final remark. What this humble Daoist just demonstrated is known as a breathing technique. Nothing more than the most common Daoist method of meditation and respiration. Having said that, you grew weary of the netizens' disputes. For you had already explained everything that needed to be explained, and there was nothing left for you to clarify. Li Feifei, however, became intrigued and typed directly into the comment box. Greetings, Daoist Qingyang. This is the Jiangnan Police Department. We have detected signs of unhealthy online influence in your livestream, and we invite you to report to the police station tomorrow for a formal inquiry. As soon as this comment appeared, the livestream erupted once more. Haha, the Daoist has truly been summoned by the authorities. Seeing this, you shook your head in resignation. Since the authorities had spoken, you naturally could not refuse. Just as you were feeling vexed, a voice of astonishment echoed from afar. Is it truly Daoist Qingyang? You looked in the direction of the voice to see a young man dressed in an elegant suit, holding a bouquet of deep red roses, with an expression of excitement as he greeted you. Daoist, I have been watching your live stream every day for the past 2 days, and never did I expect to encounter you here in Jiangnan. Greetings to you, lay practitioner. You nodded with a smile, your gaze sweeping over him, and you could not help but offer a compliment. This lay practitioner possesses a sturdy physique, and is clearly skilled in martial arts. The comments in the live stream immediately shifted focus. Heavens, is this man here to challenge the Daoist to a duel in person? It does not seem so. Look at how formally he is dressed, and he is holding roses. Could he be here to propose, perhaps? Or perhaps he is here to confess his feelings to the Daoist. The young man beamed, holding up the bouquet of roses in his hands. Daoist, is it not Valentine's Day today? I intended to propose to my girlfriend, and I never expected to meet you here. Daoist, if you are not busy, would you? Observing his sincere expression, you nod with a faint smile, pleased to witness two lovers finally uniting. For a practitioner of the Tao, is this not a virtuous act that accumulates great merit? Guided by the young man, you follow him into a high-end residential complex nearby. This district occupies an excellent location where every tree and shrub lining the path is meticulously manicured. Most of the vehicles parked along the road are luxury cars. But as you arrive at the base of the apartment building, your gaze suddenly sharpens, fixing firmly upon the crown of the young man's head. There a dense dark green aura clings to him, so thick it seems impossible to dissipate. Your heart stirs, your right hand quickly forms a seal, focusing your spirit to begin the calculation, but after several attempts, your brow furrows deeper and your heart cannot help but skip a beat. This situation is only made clear to you after a careful calculated deduction. Seeing this green aura upon his head, combined with his intention to go upstairs and propose, you cannot help but envision the scene that is about to unfold. You think to yourself, this Daoist knows something, though I wonder if it should be spoken. After a moment of hesitation, you decide to stop him in time. Paper cannot wrap around a fire. This is a matter he will discover sooner or later, and it is better to know now than later, as at least he can minimize the damage. Hearing this, the young man does not think twice and immediately nods. How has the relationship between you and your girlfriend been recently? It is excellent. We have known each other since our university days. She rents this high-end apartment with my financial support. It is just that her personality is a bit cold. She does not enjoy socializing much, but I believe that after we marry, if I give her enough love, she will surely open up. The young man speaks with joyous confidence. Look, I have even prepared a grand surprise to propose to her. Daoist, do you think I am being romantic? Hearing these words, the corners of your mouth twitch, for while it may be romantic, what he is about to receive may not be a pleasant surprise, but rather a profound shock. You ponder for a few seconds before speaking. Layman, there is a certain green hue upon your head. As soon as these words are uttered, the young man is stunned. Not only is his head green, but his face turns deathly pale as well. How can this be? I respect you as a Daoist, which is why I invited you to bear witness to our love. But now this, you dare to slander us? Facing the young man's indignation, you do not lose your temper. After all, who could easily accept being told they are being betrayed? Layman, if you do not believe me, go upstairs and see for yourself. You speak calmly. Although exposing this truth to his face is truly unpleasant, you have no desire to see a fan of yours live a life of deception. The young man was initially consumed with fury, but seeing your unwavering resolve, his inner conviction began to waver. Having watched your livestream, he knew full well that you were no ordinary charlatan or con artist. Yet what he could not reconcile was that he and his girlfriend had been together for 5 years, and he had never once committed a betrayal against her. He had even taken on multiple jobs every month just to treat her to fine dining and entertainment, and had spent a small fortune to purchase a Hermes bag for her. A man as devoted as him, how could such a person possibly be betrayed? It was simply impossible. I do not believe it. Come with me if things are not as you say. Do not blame me for being discourteous. You felt no anger at his skepticism. Such matters are indeed only believed once witnessed with one's own eyes. At this moment, the eyes of the viewers in the livestream room lit up with anticipation. That's right, brother, do not believe a word the Daoist says. Hurry upstairs and drag those 2 wretched adulterers out. Enough talk, go upstairs and see for yourself. It surely cannot be as the Daoist described. Very quickly, the 2 of them arrived before the door of an apartment. Looking at the tightly shut, high-end door, the young man felt his heart pounding erratically within his chest. His mind was in a state of utter turmoil and cold sweat beaded on his palms. He set down the bouquet of roses, his fingers trembling as he reached for the fingerprint lock. The electronic chime sounded, and without a moment's hesitation, the young man pushed the door open. Instantly, several pairs of high heels and a pair of men's shoes that did not belong to him struck his vision. At that sight, the young man's mind felt as though it had detonated. His head spun with a deafening ringing. Just then, the bedroom door opened, and a young woman emerged in a panic, dressed only in a thin nightgown, her hair disheveled and her face flushed deep red. Lin Fei, why are you? Why did you come without giving any notice? The young woman's expression was tense, and her voice trembled as she spoke. Why did I come? If I hadn't come, would I have ever discovered the truth? Upon witnessing his girlfriend's state, Lin Fei felt as if a stampede of 10,000 beasts was trampling over his very soul. A fire of rage erupted in his chest as he roared in confrontation. This scene was difficult for you to witness, but the netizens, hungry for drama, were more invigorated than ever. Brother, listen to me. Charge right in. That scoundrel must be hiding in the room. Lin Fei kicked his strange shoes violently in front of the young woman. His eyes were bloodshot at this moment, a sight that filled the girl with immense terror. Having been together for 5 years, she had never seen Lin Fei treat her with such hostility. For a moment, she could not help but shrink back in fear. Seeing his girlfriend stammer and hesitate, unable to utter a word, Lin Fei was now internally convinced that he had been betrayed. Fury rose within him, reaching the heavens, and he stormed straight into the bedroom. The door was thrown open, revealing a disheveled, empty bed. The closet and the bathroom were both devoid of a soul. Finally, Lin Fei's gaze turned toward the window, where you suddenly saw the emerald green aura above his head being rapidly consumed by a blood-red hue. The 2 clashing colors intertwined as if each sought to overcome the other. Lin Fei had reached the window, raising his hand to open it and look outside. Seeing the blood-red color gradually replace the original green above his head, you knew he was surely about to face a bloody disaster. No sooner had these words left your lips than Lin Fei pushed the window open. A naked figure was clinging to the air conditioner unit, pressed tightly against the window frame, his entire body trembling uncontrollably. In an instant, their eyes locked. Lin Fei was struck with shock and rage, but before he could react, the man, overcome with panic, lost his footing, let go, and plummeted. In this critical, hairbreadth moment, you arrived at the window. You instantly drew the golden silk horsetail whisk, which had already gathered immense power. The 3,000 golden threads transformed into a giant hand, wrapping tightly around the ankle of the falling man, and with a powerful yank, you pulled him back, causing him to crash heavily onto the floor. The man curled into a ball, shaking uncontrollably, his trousers soaked. His eyes were filled with terror and bewilderment. Seeing the man who had betrayed him right before his eyes, the fire of wrath in Lin Fei's heart, which had never faded, erupted once more. He lunged forward, kicking the man away before raining a barrage of heavy punches upon him. Lin Fei cursed incessantly, berating the man's ancestors to the 18th generation as he vented his manic rage. This time you chose to stand by and watch with folded arms, for heaven has its eyes and retribution follows its own cycle. It is not that retribution does not arrive, it is simply that the time has not yet come. The young woman sprawled on the floor outside, terrified as she listened to the commotion she attempted to flee, yet she discovered her legs had turned to jelly, devoid of any strength. Exert more force. Have you not eaten today? Help me strike that scoundrel a few times. You are truly less than human. The netizens in the live stream were all indignant on his behalf. A short while later, the sounds of beating within the bedroom gradually faded. Before long, the young man emerged from the room, shirtless, his physique robust, his hands stained with blood. At this moment, his eyes were hollow and his expression indifferent. The fury he had displayed earlier had completely vanished. Although his rage had dissipated, he now appeared even more terrifying. Daoist master, let us go. I am hungry. Seeing this, you nodded in response. Upon leaving the residential area, Lin Fei brought him to a barbecue stall, where they drank beer and ate grilled meat. However, after eating for a while, Lin Fei, who had been silent, could no longer restrain himself and broke down in tears. 2 streams of tears fell uncontrollably from his eyes. Daoist master, is this retribution? Why did she choose to betray me, despite how well I treated her? Even though he had vented his anger, the flood of memories brought with it such profound hurt and confusion that he felt utterly dejected and disappointed. When one has offered their true heart, it is not you who should regret, but the one who failed to cherish such sincerity. You fell into a long, deep contemplation before speaking. In an instant, Lin Fei seemed to grasp something. He let out a self-deprecating laugh. Indeed, the one who should regret is her. It is just that I cannot reconcile myself to this. What should I do now? Leave it to the passage of time. You gazed up at the bright moon in the sky and spoke softly. My friend, do not be disheartened. The Daoist master is right. The one who should regret is her. Countless netizens in the livestream deeply empathized with Lin Fei's experience. One after another, they offered words of comfort, and the atmosphere grew inexplicably somber. Elsewhere, Li Fei had been closely monitoring the livestream. Only now did she realize she had misunderstood the situation. This vast livestream was not a place for propagating cults, and you were not their leader. It appeared that reporting the channel was no longer necessary. Li Fei pursed her lips and was about to type a comment to inform you when the office phone suddenly rang. At this late hour, who could possibly be calling? Li Fei stood up to answer the call. Something significant had occurred. Fei, the chief has ordered me to contact you. Gather all personnel from the bureau immediately and ensure you are fully equipped. Proceed at once to the Jita shopping center. A grave situation has unfolded there. Late that night at the Jita Plaza, squads of rigorously trained officers disembarked from their vehicles and surged directly into the complex. Chief, what has happened? We received a report of an armed robbery at a jewelry store within the Jita Center. It appears that there are casualties at the scene. With a grave expression, the chief explained the situation while assigning duties to his subordinates. The perpetrators are armed with firearms. Upon hearing this, the officers stood stunned, their hearts tightening with dread. They understood well that while a robbery is a serious offense, the presence of firearms and resulting casualties fundamentally altered the gravity of the incident. Immediately following this, under the chief's methodical command, every department moved to fulfill its designated role. Having issued the orders, the chief did not hesitate, leading his team toward the jewelry store located deep within the Jita Plaza. They had not progressed far before their path was obstructed by a surging crowd. The patrons were desperate to exit while the police were attempting to enter. The sheer density of the crowd made movement nearly impossible. Even if the civilians wished to yield, the crush of bodies left them no room to maneuver. Consequently, the progress of the police force against the flow of the crowd became agonizingly slow, crawling like a snail. Yet, the situation at the jewelry store was critical and could not endure the slightest delay. In another development, Li Fei arrived with the remainder of the police contingent. The chief and his team had already reached the site of the incident. The chief issued his orders: you are to provide support by evacuating the civilians. Hearing this, Li Fei nodded with solemn resolve. The situation facing the chief was dire. The density of the crowd had hindered their arrival, and upon reaching the store, they found all the victims huddled on the floor in terror, paralyzed by fear. Meanwhile, the robber, who had been frantically gathering gold, caught sight of the officers outside. In an instant, the assailant ceased his movements, slung his bag over his shoulder, and seized a young girl, dragging her in front of him as a shield. The barrel of his firearm pressed against the head of the child, who could not have been more than 10 years old. "Stand back, do not move, or I will kill her." This ruthless display left everyone present trembling in a cold sweat. The chief immediately signaled for all officers to retreat. Seeing the police fall back nearly 200 to 300 meters, the robber did not hesitate. He gripped the girl and bolted toward the exit with his spoils. The robber had scouted every escape route surrounding the Jeddah Plaza prior to the heist, ensuring he would be able to make a clean getaway. After days of careful observation, he discovered that besides the two main entrances, the J Plaza also possessed a hidden exit. It was a path that an ordinary person would never notice. Furthermore, the area was deserted and devoid of surveillance cameras. One could easily slip into the underground sewer system to make an escape. Meanwhile, the chief of police saw the robber fleeing and, struck with dread, immediately waved his men forward to pursue the fugitive. At that same moment, on a street near Jeddah Plaza, you and Lin Fei were enjoying a meal of grilled meat. The clamor echoing from the distance caught your attention. "Police, halt right there." Li Feifei drew her firearm and shouted at the robber fleeing ahead. As soon as the words left her lips, the robber's footsteps faltered. He cursed the persistence of the law, which dogged him like a persistent specter. The robber's expression turned vicious as he cursed inwardly. Yet, when he turned his head and realized he was being pursued only by a young policewoman, he saw no one else, and a sneer of contempt could not help but surface on his cruel face. He reached into his pocket, preparing to draw his weapon and fire at Li Feifei, when a voice suddenly interrupted his thoughts. "What kind of skill is it to bully a child? If you have any courage, come and face me instead." Lin Fei, who had been dazed by alcohol, saw that the masked figure was clutching a small child, and a surge of righteousness instantly flared within him. He began walking directly toward the robber. The sudden appearance of a bystander left the robber momentarily stunned. He looked at Lin Fei, who was marching straight toward him, with a face full of bewilderment. What kind of idiot is this? The robber pulled a pistol from his pocket, the barrel aiming directly at Lin Fei. Instantly, the flushed color on Lin Fei's cheeks vanished, as if the alcohol had completely drained from his system. "My apologies, I shall not disturb you further." Lin Fei swallowed hard and immediately began to retreat. Moments ago, he had perceived that the robber was unarmed and appeared weaker than himself, leading him to attempt the role of a hero under the influence of drink. But he had not expected the robber to not only be armed, but to be carrying a pistol. This was not a matter to be trifled with. "As long as I escape, I will naturally release this child. There will be absolutely no harm done." Glancing at the three people before him, the robber deliberated for a moment before pressing his weapon against the child's temple to threaten them. "We are leaving now." Watching the child sob uncontrollably, afterward, the three of them turned back together. Li Feifei's expression was anxious, and just as she was about to speak, she saw you standing by the roadside. She called out softly, "Daoist," when she realized it was you. Li Feifei felt an immense sense of surprise and shock, but the current situation did not allow her to dwell on anything else. Meanwhile, the reaction of the netizens in the livestream room was also incredibly anxious. What kind of world is this? How could there be someone committing robbery? "Daoist, please save the little girl quickly. My heart aches so much seeing her cry." That is correct. That robber is truly detestable. Every word of indignant cursing toward the robber flooded the live stream room. Although tens of thousands of people felt outraged, they were powerless to change the critical situation at hand. Having walked a short distance, a voice suddenly called out from behind. "Big sister." The young girl's tender voice rang out. Almost in the blink of an eye, Li Feifei and Lin Fei turned their heads simultaneously. They saw the robber, who was about 10 meters away from the three of them, actually keeping his word and releasing the little girl. For a moment, everyone let out a sigh of relief. But just as the girl had run halfway, the corner of the robber's mouth suddenly curled upward. He raised his gun, aimed at the girl's back, and pulled the trigger. Almost the moment the robber raised the firearm, your heart shuddered with alarm, and you reacted instantly. You drew the wooden sword, and along with the sound of the gunshot, the bullet surged out of the barrel. At the same moment, you focused your spirit and slashed downward with your sword. A faint ethereal sword aura shot forth from the wooden blade. Immediately afterward, the hum of the sword echoed across the heavens and the earth. Following that, fragments of the bullet appeared on the ground. Seeing this, everyone was stunned, and even the netizens in the livestream were struck dumb. "Daoist, you are peak!" Lin Fei swallowed hard several times, his mouth hanging open. In the end, only the word peak could describe his state of mind at this moment. He had watched your live streams before, so he knew well that you were no ordinary person, but seeing your extraordinary prowess with his own eyes now, still remained utterly stunned. Only then did the viewers in the live stream begin to react. Heavens, what on earth is happening? A single sword strike shattered the disaster. Shocked comments sprouted like bamboo shoots after a spring rain, instantly flooding the entire live stream. The little girl gritted her teeth, her small hands clenched tightly, running toward you with all her might. She rushed straight into your arms. You, being the person closest to her, trembled as you held her tightly. After calming her down, you saw the thug had already turned and fled. You immediately pushed off the ground, your body trailing like the wind as you gave chase. At this moment, the thug saw the storm drain ahead, his heart filled with anticipation. If he could only reach the sewer following the path he had meticulously planned, he would surely escape. But as the drain drew ever closer, The thug suddenly felt a chilling sensation at the back of his neck. Looking back, he saw a figure in a green Daoist robe already standing behind him. Before he could even register his shock, you lightly swung the sword in your hand. The blade did not merely slice through his flesh, it severed his tendons and bones. In particular, the impact of his fall shattered several of his ribs instantly. The thug was in such agony that tears streamed down his face, and he could not even emit a scream. Seeing him in such a miserable state, you remained cold and showed no mercy. Had you not been present, what would have been the outcome? That innocent, pure child would have met an untimely end, while the thug would have escaped, remaining free from the reach of justice. Just then, a raspy voice, sounding nearly hoarse, came from a middle-aged woman in the distance. "Chi-Chi, where are you? Mother is here. Do not be afraid." Beside the woman was the police chief, followed by dozens of officers in uniform. As they fanned out to conduct a thorough search, they suddenly heard a tender, youthful voice. "Mother, I am here. Chi-Chi is here." Upon hearing her mother's voice, the little girl immediately turned to look. Seeing that it was indeed her mother, she did not hesitate, turning and running straight toward her. Mother and daughter were reunited in overwhelming joy. On the other side, seeing Li Fei personally handcuffing the thug, the police chief was filled with both astonishment and delight. "To think you actually captured this thug. Did you sustain any injuries?" The chief looked at Li Fei with a pleased expression. He felt utterly incredulous. No, chief, the thug was not apprehended by me. It was the Daoist." Li Fei recounted the entire sequence of events to the chief. Upon understanding the full extent of the situation, the chief approached with a look of gratitude and extended his right hand in a gesture of friendly camaraderie. "You politely reached out to shake his hand?" "Daoist, I would appreciate it if you could accompany us to the police station shortly. I intend to present you with an award for your heroic actions to express our formal appreciation. I hope that in the future the citizens will follow your noble example." Hearing this, you nodded, not for the sake of the reward, but because the ability to inspire the public in such a manner was inherently virtuous. After the thug was apprehended, you boarded the chief's vehicle and headed toward the police station. Soon the sky began to brighten, and with the capture of the criminal, the news of the late-night robbery at the Yuta shopping center spread rapidly throughout Jiangnan City. Major and minor media outlets swarmed the entrance of the Jiangnan police station, with a dense crowd of reporters surrounding the perimeter. They were primarily driven by the rumors that this particular criminal was no ordinary offender. He had not only looted a gold and silver boutique, but had also brandished a firearm and taken a child hostage. Although the criminal was eventually captured, the mere thought of the dramatic process involved was enough to leave one breathless. Inside the police station, the officers were working tirelessly, with not a moment to spare. Beyond handling the aftermath of the criminal's arrest, they were largely occupied with preparations for your award ceremony. Lin Fei and Li Fei, this time it is truly thanks to your blessing. I never imagined that in my lifetime I would have the privilege of receiving an award for heroic deeds. Lin Fei looked at the officers bustling about in preparation for the cultivation ceremony, feeling a profound sense of joy and pride within his heart. At this moment, Li Fei also felt a pang of shame for her earlier behavior during the livestream, and once again she bowed her head in respect to you. Outside, the crowd of reporters surrounding the entrance began to murmur amongst themselves. "It is already 9 o'clock. Why is there still no movement from within? Everyone, look, the chief seems to be emerging." From within the crowd, someone exclaimed, and everyone turned their gaze toward the interior to see a group of police officers, led by the chief, stepping out in an orderly and disciplined fashion. "Good morning, everyone. I shall not take up any more of your time. To put it briefly, last night, although the criminal was eventually apprehended, the incident itself was grave. I have called this meeting today primarily to commend our heroes. It was they who provided the assistance necessary to capture the criminal." As soon as he finished speaking, the director began to applaud. Below the stage, the reporters were stunned, momentarily bewildered, yet they followed suit with their own applause. Amidst the thunderous clapping, Yu Lin Fei and Li Fei stepped onto the stage one after another. Upon seeing the three young individuals on the stage clearly, they could accept the one wearing a police uniform. But as for the other two, one a robust man, and the other a Daoist priest, it left them filled with surprise and bewilderment. At this moment, a reporter could not suppress their curiosity and asked, "Director, are you saying that the ones who captured the criminal last night were these three young comrades?" The director nodded solemnly. Someone took the lead, and others followed with skeptical questions. "Did anyone at the scene see that the criminal was armed? Furthermore, it seemed several shots were fired that night. It is not that we doubt, but you and Lin Fei appear far too young." In their eyes, this was hard to believe, but the director's subsequent words left everyone astonished, completely extinguishing their immature skepticism. This time, the criminal was indeed captured by these three young people. They are truly deserving of this honor for their courageous display of righteousness. The director spoke his mind, releasing the thoughts he had been harboring. Instantly, the reporters were struck with awe. After speaking, the director personally presented the awards to the three of them. Approaching Lin Fei, the director offered an encouraging smile. Moving on to Li Fei, the director was equally informal, offering a cheerful word of encouragement as well. Finally, he reached you. The director suddenly turned grave, stood at attention to salute, and offered his thanks personally. "Thank you, Daoist Master." This action immediately seized the attention of everyone present. What was the meaning of this? Why would the director salute that Daoist priest? One must realize that this is the director of Jiangnan City. Those who could stand as his equals could be counted on one's fingers. Yet, the director showed such profound respect to the young Daoist that it felt surreal. Do not mention it, it was merely a small matter. You smiled and waved your hand, adding, faced with such a situation, anyone would have stepped forward to help. The director thanked you once more. Once the awards ceremony concluded, you bid farewell to Lin Fei and Li Feifei before quietly slipping away. As for the group of reporters, you had no intention of entertaining them, nor did you have the time to answer their endless questions. Ever since this incident came to a close, your livestream channel has surged in popularity, particularly the moment you sliced a bullet in half with a single strike, which has been shared endlessly by countless netizens. The number of concurrent viewers surpassed 1 million, and by now the sun was already high in the sky. As you walked down the street, your phone suddenly rang. The caller was the person in charge of the live streaming platform. Daoist Master Xiaoyu, I apologize for the intrusion. The viewership for your live stream is climbing steadily, but since your account has yet to post any short-form videos, you are missing out on a significant influx of new viewers. If you were to begin posting short videos, I am confident you could reach tens of millions of followers in the future, or perhaps even more. That is entirely within the realm of possibility. Xiaoyu spoke with a firm and solemn tone. Upon hearing this, you were taken aback. After a moment of reflection, you shook your head. You were concerned that you lacked the time. You worked during the day, and in the evenings, you had to chant scriptures. How could you possibly find time to edit videos? Your blunt refusal left Xiaoyu speechless. One must realize that anyone else with such an opportunity would have already exhausted every means to cultivate a following, yet you seemed completely indifferent to such matters, which left Xiaoyu utterly astonished. After a moment of silence, Xiaoyu spoke again. Daoist Master, perhaps we could arrange it this way. I will handle the video editing for you in the future, so you need not concern yourself with this matter any longer. You nodded and hung up the phone, your expression remaining calm and composed. In contrast, the netizens in the live stream were in an uproar. This is the first time in my life I have seen someone tell their manager they have no time to edit videos. Hahaha, I wonder if the Daoist Master's sword strike required the editor to spend all day piecing the footage back together with industrial glue. You paid no mind to the comments and continued searching for the nearest eatery. Finally, you stopped at a noodle shop near the intersection and asked, "Lay practitioner, do you have cold noodles?" You stepped into the shop, approached the counter, and cupped your hands in greeting. "Yes, we do." "Daoist Master, please, find a seat wherever you like. I shall prepare it for you immediately." The clerk was a middle-aged woman, roughly 50 years of age, and upon seeing a customer enter, her face lit up with a joyful smile. She then turned toward the back of the kitchen and called out, "Old man, a bowl of stir-fried noodles. The shop is not large. You find a seat in the corner, yet the business of this noodle shop seems quite lackluster. Even now, you have yet to see a single other customer. If not for the people passing by outside, you would almost suspect this to be a clandestine establishment." "Benefactor, how much for the bowl of noodles?" 10 copper coins. The matron replies with a cheerful smile. Hearing this, you heave a sigh of relief, yet you are troubled by the fact that even on a slow day, it is strange for a noodle shop at midday to be completely devoid of patrons. Furthermore, you see no other eateries in the immediate vicinity. Before long, the matron emerges from the kitchen with a heaping plate of stir-fried noodles. "Daoist priest, please enjoy your meal." You nod. Merely catching the aroma of the noodles is enough to stir your appetite. Taking the plate, you gaze at the glistening, generous portion, lift a strand with your chopsticks, and your eyes light up as you begin to eat with gusto. This only deepens your suspicions. With food this delicious, how could the business be failing so miserably? Just then, a middle-aged man exits the kitchen. His face is slick with oil from his constant labor over the stove. He sets 2 dishes on another table, retrieves a bottle of wine, and removes his apron. The matron then brings over 2 bowls of rice, hands one to the man, and the two sit down to dine together. You cannot help but ask, "Benefactor, is business not going well?" "It is not great. This shop has been open for 3 years. The first 2 years we managed to hold on, but this year the business has steadily declined." Hearing this, the man sighs in helplessness, the deep lines on his face etched with sorrow. Such a dense aura of baleful energy, you knit your brows. You are greatly astonished, for such a thing could only occur if the shop owner were harboring an object of sinister intent or had been secretly cursed by another. Once you have finished your meal, you offer your sincere praise. "Thank you, benefactor, these snail noodles are truly delicious." "Haha, as long as the Daoist priest finds them to his liking, that is enough." A joy smile immediately appears on the man's face, and his tone becomes noticeably bright. You slowly stand and walk toward the desk. Feigning surprise, you ask, "Benefactor, do you know how to practice calligraphy?" "I know a little. It is merely a pastime." The man laughs and scratches his head. His expression, "I have practiced calligraphy in the past. If you do not mind, I could compose a pair of couplets for your shop, as a small token of gratitude for this meal. Then I shall trouble you, Daoist." The middle-aged man was stunned. He pondered for a moment before nodding in agreement. "Not out of modesty, for you have practiced calligraphy since childhood, and although your brushwork cannot compare to the level of a grand master, you possess a solid foundation. Offering these couplets is not merely to repay the meal, but more importantly to dissipate the dense, baleful aura lingering here." Spreading out the couplet paper, you dip the brush into the ink, silently channeling the spiritual energy within your body, and as the brush descended, every stroke flowed with natural grace, the overall composition appearing as if crafted by the heavens themselves, suppressing the mountain of blades and the lake of fire, commanding all ghosts and gods to tremble in awe. Daoist, this, the middle-aged man's eyes widened, his voice trembling. Although he did not understand the intricacies of calligraphy, he could clearly perceive the extraordinary nature of this couplet. The characters seemed to come alive, pulsing with spiritual energy. Inside the livestream room, over 1 million viewers erupted in a frenzy. Numerous grand masters of calligraphy began to appear one after another. The chairman of the Hangzhou Calligraphy Association and the chairman of the Jiangnan Calligraphy Association left consecutive comments, either offering millions to purchase it or declaring their immediate intent to visit in person. The livestream room instantly transformed into an auction house, filled with gifts and special effects never seen before. These calligraphy masters had spent their entire lives seeking a breakthrough, only to be repeatedly obstructed. Yet, the spiritual energy contained within your couplet was the very key they needed to break through their bottleneck, hence they spared no cost to possess it. However, from beginning to end you had no intention of selling. Seeing the middle-aged man stunned and silent, you wondered if he was dissatisfied? You asked, no, absolutely not. I am very satisfied. The middle-aged man hurriedly shook his head, his gaze darting between the couplet and you. Swallowing hard, he asked in disbelief, Daoist, is this pair of couplets truly meant for us? You nodded simply, thank you so much, Daoist. I will go fetch a ladder. As he prepared to hang them by the door, you reached out and stopped the middle-aged man, who was trembling with excitement. There is no need for such trouble. I shall assist you in mounting them. After applying adhesive to the back of the scrolls, you approach the entrance, observing the frame standing over 2 meters high, and lightly push off from the balls of your feet. With a fluid leap, you soar vertically into the air. With a faint sound, you securely affix the first scroll to the wall. Upon landing, you immediately move to the other side to mount the second, the entire process flowing as seamlessly as water. Finished, you brush off your hands and nod in satisfaction at the perfectly aligned scrolls. This display leaves the middle-aged man and the passers-by stunned, their jaws nearly hitting the floor. Some rub their eyes, doubting their own vision, while others mutter to themselves, wondering if they have lost their senses. Netizens in the livestream room are left laughing and crying, mocking that the shock on their own faces earlier mirrors that of the onlookers. Layman, these scrolls shall safeguard this restaurant, ensuring its peace and security. You speak with a tone of instruction. The hour grows late and I must take my leave. Having mounted the scrolls, you notice that more than half of the malevolent aura within the establishment has dissipated. Even the ominous gloom surrounding the proprietor's head has faded significantly. Within a few days, it will surely vanish completely. Very well, Daoist, travel safely and take care. The proprietor stares blankly at your retreating figure, his heart still trembling. He looks up at the scrolls upon the doorframe. The spiritual energy radiating from each character fills him with profound joy, and he turns back into the shop to tidy up. But not long after, a thunderous noise erupts outside the restaurant. The middle-aged man is startled. He drops his apron and rushes toward the front. Upon reaching the entrance, his expression shifts instantly. A heavy truck is hurtling toward the restaurant at an extreme speed. The friction between the tires and the asphalt produces a piercing, screeching sound. A long black skid mark is etched into the ground, yet the truck's velocity does not decrease. It appears that while the truck was traveling normally, another vehicle intentionally cut it off, leaving the driver unable to brake in time, forced to swerve directly toward the noodle shop. At this point, it is far too late to stop. Pedestrians nearby scream in terror. Some frantically call for help, while others, unable to bear the sight, close their eyes, already envisioning the restaurant being reduced to rubble, and the inevitable loss of life. A series of deafening collisions rings out. Even you, not yet far away, are startled and turn to look back. Dust billows into the air, and everyone's heart leaps into their throat. But as the dust begins to settle, those who look closely find their eyes widening in disbelief, their expressions one of pure astonishment. The noodle shop remains completely unscathed. The proprietor stands at the entrance, though he has collapsed to the ground in terror, his body trembling. The truck's front end is only slightly dented. The tires burst due to the sudden violent braking. The driver was trapped within the crushed cabin. The shop owner remained alive. A cry of astonishment shattered the oppressive silence. Only then did the onlookers awaken from their shock, stepping forward one by one to offer their aid. Soon the driver was successfully pulled from the cabin. Though his face bore only a few minor scratches, his spirit was in a state of extreme agitation. He grasped the hands of the bystanders, shouting wildly, a god, I saw a god, it was an immortal who saved my life." Seeing this, the crowd recoiled, fearing the man might act irrationally. Fortunately, several sturdy men stepped in to calm him, and the driver slowly regained his composure. On the other side, the middle-aged man, under the care of his neighbors, had also recovered from the terror. In his mind, the scene he had just witnessed played out repeatedly. A flash of golden light and a Daoist in azure robes who blocked the heavy truck with a mere wave of his sleeve. He looked toward the distant figure, whose expression remained as calm as if the entire event had been anticipated. Once the restaurant and the man were confirmed to be safe, the figure turned and continued on his way. Gazing at the mysterious figure in the azure robes, the middle-aged man slapped his thigh hard, ignoring the hot water spilled upon him, and cried out. I understand now, it was the Daoist master. Amidst the bewildered stares of the crowd, the man rushed to the door, gazing up at the couplets on the frame. By now, the couplets had lost their lingering spiritual aura, appearing entirely ordinary, yet his heart was resolute. He then faced the direction where the man had departed, knelt down with a heavy thud, and shouted, I thank the Daoist master for saving my life. The neighbors finally realized the truth, recalling the strange spectacle, the way the truck had come to an abrupt stop, and connecting it to the man's words when he gifted the couplets. They felt his presence was truly profound and inscrutable. Daoist master, are you unharmed? Xiao Yu called in a hurry. She had been monitoring the live stream, and upon seeing the accident she had immediately abandoned her work to pursue him. I am unharmed. With the couplets I bestowed upon the restaurant it remained unscathed, Yu replied with indifference. Xiao Yu exhaled a sigh of relief, yet in the next instant she looked up at you with an expression of disbelief. You nodded slightly, silently confirming her suspicion, and Xiao Yu's beautiful eyes widened in sheer astonishment. The speed and distance of that truck made it physically impossible for it to have stopped naturally. The astute netizens within the live stream, having observed the silent exchange of glances between you and Xiao Yu, began to piece together the clues. The comment section brimmed with praise for your ability to hide your true depths. Longhu Mountain is the sacred ground of Taoism, and the Celestial Master Mansion is renowned throughout the world. Although Taoism has declined in this modern era, Longhu Mountain remains one of the few prominent Taoist temples still standing. Furthermore, as a 5A-rated tourist attraction, the number of visitors it draws every year is immense. At this moment, at the foot of Longhu Mountain, the crowd was like a surging sea, shoulder to shoulder, with heads visible in every direction. Wow, there are so many people. It truly lives up to its reputation as a sacred Taoist site. Xiao Yu looked at the bustling stream of people and could not help but exclaim in astonishment. Let us go up the mountain we go, you said, observing the lively scene. A look of genuine pleasure appeared on your face. Even though you belong to a different sect, you are both followers of the Tao. Seeing that Longhu Mountain attracts so many visitors to tour and to offer their respects, you felt a sense of gratification. This proves that the Taoist path has not yet vanished beneath the currents of history. However, there is a disadvantage to such heavy crowds. Waiting in line alone took over an hour, and you were still more than 10 meters away from the entrance. The netizens in the live stream began to lament the ordeal. Some jokingly suggested that you simply fly up the mountain, sparking a wave of lighthearted laughter. Just as you were about to purchase tickets, you suddenly felt your robe being tugged. You turned your head to see a little girl with her hair styled in buns, possessing a doll-like face and sucking on a lollipop, using her small chubby hands to pull at your robe, while curiously appraising you. The child was roughly 5 or 6 years old, with large sparkling eyes that appeared exceptionally bright. Little one, greetings, you said with a smile, taking the initiative to greet her. Daoist brother, greetings to you. The little girl waved her free hand, her voice soft and endearing. Is there something you need from me? I have lost my mother. Daoist brother, could you please help me find my mother? The little girl's voice carried a hint of distress. That is not a problem. You raised your head to scan the dense crowd, then nodded decisively. So what is your name? What is your mother's name? In the Dongdu tourist area, incidents of lost children were far from uncommon. The little girl blinked and answered truthfully, My name is Chi-Chi, and my mother's name is Ngotuyet. Very well, I will take you to find your mother now. You smiled and reached out, taking the child's small plump hand into yours. You were no immortal. Simply knowing a name was not enough to locate someone in a sea of people, so the most reliable course of action was to seek assistance at the broadcast station. Before you could set off, Xiao Yu approached and whispered, Daoist, perhaps it would be better if I took Chiki to find her? You have been queuing for so long to reach Jingxin Mountain. Do not let your progress go to waste. It is of no consequence, it is merely Jingxin Mountain. I shall ensure the child is in a safe place first. You smiled and waved your hand, then picked up Kichi and headed toward the broadcast station. Along the way, Chiki spoke to you incessantly about many things. You learned that she had sought you out because amidst the vast crowd, your cyan Daoist robe stood out significantly. Moreover, being by your side made her feel remarkably secure. The netizens in the livestream room were melted by Kiki's innocence, leaving a flurry of comments praising her. Big brother Daoist, do you have time to come to my house? My house is very large, and there is even a castle. Chiki mumbled around her lollipop, speaking indistinctly, My mother's car has a small golden statue that can move up and down. It is so much fun. Very well, you smiled and nodded in agreement. These words caused an uproar among the viewers in the livestream room. A small golden statue and a car that can adjust its height. It was clearly a Rolls-Royce. Everyone jokingly clamored to be reincarnated as Kiki's younger brother, inciting a wave of joyful laughter. Cutting through the throngs of people, you brought Chiki to the broadcast station and explained the situation to the staff, who immediately began the search announcement. Ms. Ngotuyet, your daughter Kiki is currently waiting for you at the broadcast station. Please come to retrieve her as soon as possible. Not long after, a woman with refined features and an air of nobility rushed toward you. The moment she saw Chi-Chi, her eyes turned red, and she hurried over to pull her daughter into a tight embrace, her voice choked with emotion. Chi-Chi, are you all right? Mother, you are holding me a little too tightly. Chi-Chi whispered softly. The woman hastily loosened her grip, weeping with joy. As long as you are safe, as long as you are safe. Mother, it is all thanks to Big Brother Daoist. He is the one who brought me here. Cheeky pointed at you as she spoke. Ngo Tuyet followed her daughter's finger, stood up in a hurry to express her gratitude, and then reached into her purse, pulling out a stack of cash to offer as a reward. You gently shake your head in refusal. Benefactor, what I did was a mere trifle. There is no need for such formalities. You sit down and gently pat Cheeky's head, instructing her, next time you must stay close to your mother. Do not wander off again. Yes, I will. Cheeky nods repeatedly, watching as you stand up and prepare to leave, calling you Daoist brother. The little girl waves her small hand and shouts, "Goodbye, Daoist brother." After bidding farewell to the mother and daughter, you exit the broadcast station and head straight toward the ticket booth. Just then, a mechanical voice suddenly resonates within your mind. Ding, the host has arrived at the Daoist sacred ground, Longhu Mountain. Do you wish to check in and receive a reward? Check in. You ponder this silently. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully checking in at Longhu Mountain. You have received the divine ability, Five Thunders Orthodox Method. As you contemplate the Five Thunders Orthodox Method, celestial thunder rumbles, yet not a single blade of grass within a 100-mile radius is harmed. You are secretly delighted, not expecting to successfully check in while still at the foot of the mountain, let alone receive such a heaven-defying lightning ability. However, you do not intend to leave immediately. Since you have already arrived, you must naturally pay a visit to the Celestial Master Mansion. The wail of sirens echoes from the distance, and shortly after, several police vehicles arrive in succession at the foot of Longhu Mountain. Such a massive display immediately draws the gaze of everyone present. Everyone stops to watch as numerous police officers step out of the vehicles. With solemn expressions, they begin to evacuate the crowd. A middle-aged officer holds a megaphone and shouts, "Everyone, please leave this area immediately. Those who wish to ascend the mountain, do so at once and do not turn back. Those who intend to leave, evacuate quickly. Do not linger on the path under any circumstances." Simultaneously, the other officers act swiftly, evacuating the public in an orderly fashion. The ticket booth is also ordered to cease operations, and all entrances are open to allow tourists to ascend the mountain as quickly as possible. This sudden action causes confusion among the people, yet no one dares to defy the police, and all comply with the arrangements. Damn it, we get to go up the mountain without even buying a ticket. What on earth has happened? Is there an earthquake? Forget it, isn't it better to go up for free? Let's hurry. Among the buzzing crowd, most are delighted to have saved money on tickets and skip the queues, giving no thought to the underlying danger. Standing in the line, you furrow your brows slightly as a flicker of suspicion arises in your heart. When you turn back to look, 2 miles from the Longhu Mountain Road, dozens of massive elephants were charging forward. Behind the elephants trailed countless other beasts, their numbers too vast to fathom. The stampede was ferocious. With every step, the earth trembled violently. The momentum was terrifying and deafening, and long before they arrived, everyone could feel the earth shaking as if an earthquake were unfolding. Terrified by the sight, the crowd no longer dared to hesitate, scrambling desperately toward the mountain. Yet, the tourist site was overcrowded. Despite prior evacuation efforts by the police, nearly 1,000 visitors remained near the mountain entrance, while the beast horde drew ever closer. These massive elephants, each standing several meters tall and weighing tens of tons, could overturn a car with a single stomp. Before them, humans were as insignificant as ants. Should the stampede collide with the crowd, the consequences would be unimaginable. No one could say how many would be trampled to death. The officers in charge of the evacuation frowned, particularly the middle-aged teen leader Li Qingshan. Watching the beast draw closer, his heart was filled with profound anxiety. It was now impossible for all the tourists to reach the safety of the mountain in time. The only option was to buy time. Everyone, halt! Li Qingshan bellowed, simultaneously drawing his weapon and firing a shot into the air. The deafening gunshot silenced the chaotic crowd instantly. Everyone froze where they stood. Proceed up the mountain in an orderly line. Anyone who dares to push ahead or cause a disturbance will be charged with obstructing evacuation. I will fire on the spot. Li Qingshan's expression was stern, his tone absolute, as he ordered his dozen officers to maintain order at the scene. Under such pressure, the chaotic crowd immediately became orderly, and with all entrances opened, the efficiency of the evacuation increased significantly. Nevertheless, some could not help but complain. At a time like this, we're still lining up? The elephants are almost here, and you just use your gun to bully your own people. If you have the guts, go stop the elephants yourself. These complaints reached Li Qingshan's ears. His gaze sharpened as he replied in a booming voice, "Anyone with a grievance can report me to the Jiangnan Police Bureau at any time. I, Li Qingshan, do not hide my actions nor my name. If anyone dares to cut the line, they will not be setting foot on this mountain today." Having said this, he looked toward the young officer beside him. "Shaolin, I leave this post to you. Remember, if anyone dares to cut the line or cause trouble, shoot immediately." Understood. Those who had been complaining moments ago were immediately struck with terror, bowing their heads in silence, not daring to utter another word. The ground began to tremble with increasing violence, the roars of the approaching beast horde drawing ever closer, leaving everyone's hearts in their throats. As a tide of primal fear surged through the crowd, Li Qingshan gazed at the horde before him, then turned to the 1,000 visitors who had yet to ascend the mountain. A profound sense of helplessness washed over him. The firepower of the local police force was utterly insufficient to contend with such a monstrous stampede. By the time reinforcements arrived, it was likely that the mountain entrance would have already been razed to the ground by the beasts. It is over. I have served as an officer for 20 years, earning commendations of the second and third class, yet a first-class merit has always eluded me. Today it seems I shall finally fulfill that wish. Li Qingshan gritted his teeth, turned, and sprinted toward the police cruisers. He drove a patrol car directly toward the path of the oncoming horde, stopping at a position roughly 1 mile from the beasts, before running back to reposition the other police vehicles toward the mountain entrance. The other officers witnessed his actions and immediately grasped his intention. They would use the patrol cars to form a barricade, delaying the advance of the beasts. Even a single second bought was a chance for dozens of visitors to safely ascend the mountain. The officers hesitated no longer and sprang into action. Within moments, dozens of cruisers were aligned horizontally across the path, forming an improvised blockade. Without warning, a thunderous impact echoed through the air as the lead cruiser was sent flying by the tusks of an elephant, crashing into a roadside ditch and instantly erupting into a blaze that scorched the heavens. Soon after, one patrol car after another was pulverized under the trampling feet of the stampede. Amidst the soaring flames, the barrier that had seemed so formidable was decimated by the terrifying force of the beasts in less than 3 seconds. The roars of the animals shook the very skies, as the lead elephants charged forth, followed by countless other creatures, like an unstoppable army of destruction, lunging straight toward Longhu Mountain. This sight left the tourists deathly pale, their bodies trembling uncontrollably as the sheer terror shattered their psychological defenses. "It is over, truly over, I do not want to die. Someone save me," came the desperate cries. Wails of despair echoed incessantly, and the crowd descended into chaos, all pushing and shoving toward the mountain path. The scene was a chaotic, unmanageable mess. Li Qingshan witnessed this collapse with eyes full of despair, yet he did not retreat. The duty of an officer bound him. He could not flee. He lit a cigarette, took a deep drag, and gave a bitter laugh. If I am to die, surely fate should at least grant me a first-class technique in the afterlife. Just as Li Qingshan resigned himself to his fate, a series of resounding bells suddenly echoed across Longhu Mountain. The thunderous tolling of the bells reverberated through the heavens, causing the chaotic crowd to freeze instantly, and even the frenzied beasts paused in their tracks. Immediately after, hundreds of Daoists dressed in gray robes surged down from the mountain. Leading them were 2 middle-aged Daoists in yellow robes and an elder Daoist draped in purple. A moment later, the purple-robed elder led the group of Daoists to the front of the beast horde. He was none other than Zhang Tianxi of the Longhu Mountain Tianxi Mansion. Immeasurable blessings, he spoke. "Li Qingshan, are you unharmed?" Zhang Tianxi looked toward Li Qingshan and those holding the front lines. With a tone of genuine concern, he asked Zhang Tianxi, "We are fine, it is only this horde of beasts." Li Qingshan smiled bitterly and gestured toward the beasts before him, his face filled with helplessness. "Do not worry, leave the rest to this old Daoist." Zhang Tianxi flicked his sleeves, his gaze locked onto the beast horde as he shouted, "Impudent creatures, Longhu Mountain is a sacred ground. How dare you run rampant here?" Upon Zhang Tianxi's command, the Daoists behind him moved with practiced precision, quickly forming a bagua formation. Zhang Tianxi stood at the heart of the formation. Though he was well into his twilight years, his voice remained thunderous and his spirit vigorous, completely untouched by the weight of age. The beasts seemed to perceive the provocation and let out a series of maddened roars before dozens of elephants led the charge toward the bagua formation. Other beasts followed closely behind, rushing forward like a wildfire. Spirits flowing, essence contained, divine might manifested. As swift as the law, obey this command. Zhang Tianxi held a spirit bell in his right hand, quickly forming a mudra with his left, and began to chant. The sound of the spirit bell suddenly amplified 100-fold, echoing across the sky. Although the sound was deafening, it did not cause the people any discomfort. Conversely, the beasts charging ahead were struck as if by lightning, simultaneously rearing their heads and roaring toward the heavens. Their roars were filled with a profound and miserable wail. Under the oppressive force of the Sanqing bell, the beasts' ears were severely damaged. Many animals lost their sense of direction instantly, collapsing to the ground and convulsing without ceasing. The echo of the bell continued to resonate within their minds, causing them immense agony. "Rest assured, with the Tianxi and all of us here, Longhu Mountain will never allow any of you to suffer even the slightest harm." A yellow-robed Daoist stepped forward, speaking loudly to reassure the tourists. For Longhu Mountain to exist to this day, it could not survive without the support of the public. If the tourists were to suffer heavy casualties today, the reputation of Longhu Mountain and the Tianxi Mansion would be destroyed, leading to their total collapse. "Thank you for saving us, Tianxi. The Tianxi is truly magnificent. It is a blessing that the..." Expressions of gratitude echoed incessantly. The hearts of those present, which had been hanging by a thread, were finally at ease. Overcome by the relief that follows a great calamity, Li Qingshan and the others breathed a sigh of relief and lit their cigarettes. Their tense nerves had finally begun to relax, but in the very next second, the ground shuddered violently, more intensely than it ever had before. The cigarette in Li Qingshan's hand was shaken loose and fell to the ground. Everyone looked up in astonishment, only to see the herd of elephants which had previously been circling in place suddenly turn and charge toward the tourists on the mountainside. The elephants' eyes were bloodshot, and their aggression was even more frenzied than before, a sight that chilled the soul. Zhang Tianxi furrowed his brows. He had not expected these beasts to recover from the tolling of the bell. He immediately raised the Sanqing bell once more and shook it violently, releasing a heaven-shaking chime. The countenances of Zhang Tianxi and the others shifted dramatically. Upon closer inspection, they realized that blood was pouring from the elephant's ears. They had long since gone deaf, rendering them completely immune to any sound. "Make for the mountain," Zhang Tianxi roared. The Daoists immediately scattered to provide cover for the fleeing tourists. Panic gripped the crowd once again, and they scrambled toward the higher ground. The stability they had found only moments ago was shattered, their emotions plunging like a roller coaster in a matter of seconds. Many were so paralyzed by terror that their legs gave way, rendering them unable to run, forced forward only by the surging mass of people. Amidst the crushing throng, a woman clutching a 5-year-old girl fought desperately to ascend the mountain. It was Chi-Chi and her mother. "I implore you all, please make way for my daughter, I beg of you." Wu Tui's voice was choked with tears, but in the chaotic swell of the crowd, her pleas were rendered insignificant. In the suffocating press of bodies, packed so tightly that not even a needle could pass through, let alone reaching the mountain, simply managing not to be trampled was a stroke of fortune. All the more so when burdened with a child. "I beg you, let my child pass first." Watching the maddened herd charge toward the crowd, then looking at the dense, unyielding column of people moving at a snail's pace, her heart sank. Wushu clutched her daughter, weeping, her voice thick with desperation. Despair welled up within Wushu, nearly breaking her. Had it been only herself, she would have accepted death beneath the feet of the beasts. But Chi-Chi was still so young, so fragile and delicate. As a mother, she was prepared to risk everything to keep her child safe, but reality dealt her a devastating blow. The crowd remained unmoved, the roars of the dozens of elephants behind them grew ever closer, and the shadow of death began to loom. "Mother, I won't leave you. I want to stay by your side," Chi-Chi whispered, her soft voice carrying a resilience far beyond her years. The clarity in the girl's eyes as she looked at Wu Shui caused the mother to collapse under the weight of her own guilt. Tears fell freely. "Kiki, please forgive me." A thunderous roar shattered the air as one of the red-eyed elephants broke through the outer perimeter of the crowd, lunging straight toward the mother and daughter. It bellowed toward the heavens, its massive forelimbs raised like pillars of the sky, before crashing down with the force of impending annihilation. Chi-Chi closed her eyes in terror, but in her mind the image of Yu, clad in green Daoist robes, appeared. The scene of blood sprang 3 feet into the air, which she had imagined did not come to pass. The elephant felt a sudden terrifying force erupt from beneath its feet. With a deafening crash, its massive body in tons was sent flying, slamming into a nearby vehicle and sending a shower of sparks into the air. Chikia's Daoist brother opened his eyes, astonished to see you standing as a shield before her and her mother. The fall of one elephant completely enraged the herd. The remaining elephants shifted their momentum, roaring as they charged toward you. The lead elephant, fueled by madness, once again raised its foreleg to stomp down upon your head. "Vile beast, you court death." Your expression remained indifferent, your tone calm, yet carrying an unquestionable authority. In the very next second, a gale erupted from all directions, sending everyone stumbling and swaying. Leaves were whipped into a frenzy, and even the elephants charging at the front were forced to retreat 2 paces. You tapped your toes lightly against the ground, your body rising upon the fierce wind until you stood suspended in the air. The green Daoist robe upon your person shifted hue, transforming into a robe of imperial purple. The azure robe was impervious to all methods, while the purple robe governed the laws of heaven and earth. As the purple robe billowed in the wind, arcs of violet lightning coiled around your form like hidden dragons, exuding a breathtaking pressure. The moment these words fell, the thunderous power surrounding you intensified, like a god of thunder descending to the mortal realm, striking terror into the hearts of all who beheld you. Yet the beast herd did not retreat. Instead, they circled in place, roaring, showing no trace of fear. You sighed inwardly. "I offered you a chance, yet you did not cherish it. Do not blame me for being ruthless." Without further hesitation, the violet lightning surrounding you erupted in a sudden surge. You chanted the thunder incantation. The 9 heavens' mystic radiance transformed into divine thunder, radiating the majesty of the heavens, guided by the edge of your blade. With a flick of your sleeve, a wooden sword manifested from the void into your hand. You formed a sword seal, pointing the wooden blade directly toward the heavens. The violet lightning around you instantly expanded. Thunder roared, and the heavens and earth changed color. Thick dark storm clouds gathered rapidly in the sky above. Bolts of violet lightning, like divine dragons emerging from the abyss, streaked through the clouds. A scene so world-shattering and horrific that the elephant, which had moments ago been rampaging, immediately fell silent. Total chaos erupted. The blood-red eyes of the lead elephant were now filled with panic and dread. The tourists in the rear, along with the Daoists of Longhu Mountain who were preparing to flee, including even the Grandmaster Zhang, were struck speechless, their hearts shaken to the core. Is this Daoist priest even human? Gripping the wooden sword tightly, he swung his hand with a sudden motion and shouted loudly, "Five Thunders Method." As the words faded, lightning erupted from the heavens like a dragon emerging from the sea, pouring down in an overwhelming torrent in the blink of an eye. 9 bolts of violet divine lightning tore through the gloomy sky, illuminating the entire region. The thunderous roar shook the heavens, echoing for 10,000 miles. Nearly 1 million viewers in the livestream, despite being behind their screens, felt the crushing pressure of the heavens, their scalps tingling in sheer terror. The comment section was instantly flooded. This Taoist priest who summons lightning with a single sword stroke is incredible. This scene is more realistic than any special effect. The violet lightning struck the open ground, instantly scorching a massive patch of earth pitch black. Violet electric arcs danced across the ground. The miserable wails of the elephant herd echoed across the clouds. They no longer possessed a shred of arrogance and turned to flee in panic. A few lead elephants were so terrified they soiled themselves in a pathetic display. As the thundercloud slowly dissipated, you descended gradually, your violet robe shifting back into simple blue attire. Looking at the chaotic scene and the stampeding beasts, you nodded with satisfaction. You had never intended to slaughter them all, merely using the lightning as a deterrent to force them to return to the zoo obediently. The pressure of that violet divine lightning had been carved into their very bones, ensuring they would never dare to act recklessly again. The tourists finally regained their senses, their eyes filled with worship and awe as they praised the divine might of your lightning techniques. Li Qingshan and the other police officers stood frozen in place, their worldview completely shattered. They had originally believed the celestial masters of Longhu Mountain were the pinnacle of power, yet they never expected you to be capable of summoning the heavenly thunder itself. This was no ordinary Daoist, but clearly a master of lightning and thunder. Daoist priest. Thank you. Li Qingshan took a deep breath, his voice trembling as he stepped forward to offer his gratitude. It was nothing, you said with a wave of your hand, your gaze carrying a hint of appreciation. Your willingness to sacrifice yourselves for the sake of justice earns my respect. You had witnessed their actions in driving their vehicles to block the stampede earlier. Protecting the people is our duty, Li Qingshan replied with a firm tone. At this moment, the venerable celestial master Zhang, clad in his violet robes, approached rapidly, clasping his hands in a bow. Bowing with hands clasped, he said, "Fellow Daoist, Longhu Mountain faced a calamity this time, and it is fortunate that you stepped in to assist." This old Daoist bows his head in gratitude. Before his words had even faded, he knelt down and prostrated himself. "Celestial Master, please rise," you said, startled, and hurriedly reached out to help him up. You were well aware of the gravity carried by those purple Daoist robes. Only a true Celestial Master was qualified to wear them. The old Ken before you was the current Celestial Master of Longhu Mountain, yet he had knelt before you in the presence of a crowd, which was completely beyond your expectations. Old Celestial Master Zhang rose to his feet, his eyes filled with gratitude. If not for the intervention of a fellow Daoist, the casualties among the tourists would have been severe, and the reputation of Longhu Mountain would have surely plummeted beyond recovery. The Celestial Master's mansion would have fallen into total ruin. The tourists and the Daoist priests of Longhu Mountain nearby were all shocked at this sight. Their Celestial Master had knelt before a young Daoist, barely 20 years of age, whose origins were unknown. Old Celestial Master Zhang asked for your name. This humble Daoist hails from the Qinglong Temple on Qinglong Mountain, with the Daoist title Qingyang. Old Celestial Master Zhang was stunned, then suddenly recalled the temple not far from Longhu Mountain. He thought to himself that a master capable of training such a formidable disciple must surely be an extraordinary individual, and he decided he must pay his respects in the future. Fellow Daoist Qingyang, since you are passing through Longhu Mountain, would you care to join me on the mountain for a visit? It would allow this old Daoist to show some hospitality and express my gratitude for saving our lives. Very well, you agreed with a nod. You had intended to visit the Celestial Master's mansion in any case, and there was no better way to do so than with the Celestial Master himself as your guide. And so, led by old Celestial Master Zhang, flanked by Daoist priests in yellow robes acting as his guard, and followed by hundreds of gray-robed disciples, you proceeded toward the sacred grounds of Longhu Mountain. Meanwhile, at an intersection in Jiangnan City, a severe car accident had occurred. Flames soared into the sky as a bald monk looked on with a cold smirk, the prayer beads around his neck radiating a thick, murderous aura. Among them, a bead carved with the character for disaster suddenly shattered. Which wretch has dared to ruin my plans? The soul-calling monk's rage reached a breaking point. The destruction of 2 consecutive prayer beads could not have been a mere coincidence. There was someone actively sabotaging his plans. When he saw the news on his phone regarding a young heavenly master dressed in purple robes, who had summoned heavenly lightning with a single strike of his sword to disperse the beast horde, the veins on his forehead bulged and his fury blazed uncontrollably. The Daoist at the mountain gate, Xiaozhi Wushui carrying Chi-Chi, waved their hands at you in excitement. Daoist Qingyang, are these your friends? The elder Heavenly Master Zhang inquired. That is correct, you nodded, introducing the 2 parties. This is Heavenly Master Zhang and these are Xiaoyu Wushui and Chi-Chi. After the initial greetings, Elder Heavenly Master Zhang cordially invited them to tour the Heavenly Master Mansion. They accepted with pleasure. Under the guidance of the Heavenly Master, you ascended the 999 stone steps, finally arriving at the Zhengyi Temple. The Heavenly Master Mansion is situated within the temple itself, a place where ordinary tourists and Daoists are not permitted to enter. The grand gate of the Zhengyi Temple was magnificent, bearing the 3 bold characters of Zhengyi Temple inscribed upon it. On both sides hung couplets. The powerful righteous energy emanating from every stroke of the calligraphy was palpable. Upon entering the temple, the solemn and ancient Daoist architectural structures appeared before your eyes. Wushu and Chiki's eyes were filled with astonishment and curiosity. Xiaoyu could not help but exclaim in admiration, "These structures feel so profound. They must have centuries of history, right?" Elder Heavenly Master Zhang stroked his silver beard and smiled with pride. Most of these structures were built a millennium ago. The most recent renovation took place during the Republican era, 100 years ago. Millions of netizens watching the live stream were left utterly stunned by this revelation. Longhu Mountain is truly the ancestral home of Taoism. Its heritage is profoundly deep. Heavenly Master Zhang Daling founded the Zhengyi sect. His status in the Taoist world is comparable to that of Einstein in the realm of science. Just as Elder Heavenly Master Zhang was introducing the grounds to you, a Taoist came rushing over in a panic. Elder Heavenly Master, something has happened in the alchemy room. Please come and take a look. Elder Heavenly Master Zhang frowned, turned around, and clasped his hands in an apology to you. Taoist Qingyang, an urgent matter has arisen in the temple. I must attend to it and can no longer accompany you. I hope you will forgive me. It is of no consequence. Please attend to your duties, Heavenly Master. You replied calmly. Elder Heavenly Master Zhang did not hesitate further, striding quickly toward the alchemy room. Before leaving, he arranged for a middle-aged Taoist in yellow robes to serve as your guide. This Taoist is the Hall Master of the Zhengyi Temple, a man who remains constantly by the Celestial Master's side. Everyone, please follow me. The Hall Master spoke respectfully as he led you further ahead. Along the way, you encountered quite a few tourists, all of whom stepped forward, hoping to take pictures with you. The Hall Master had assumed the tourists were seeking him out, given that he held a position of no small status within the temple, but to his surprise, they completely ignored him. They all swarmed around you, even spontaneously forming a long line. In an instant, you had become a famous tourist attraction of Longhu Mountain. The Hall Master stood frozen in place, his inner thoughts a mix of amusement and irony. Who exactly is the Taoist of Longhu Mountain here? Ever since your collaboration with the state television station, your online popularity had been rising incessantly. Coupled with a recent incident where you used lightning techniques to save a person, which spread across the entire network, you surged directly to the #1 spot on the trending searches, with even the official news outlets of Jiangnan City reporting on you. The title of Taoist Master Qingyang had become renowned everywhere. Taoist Master, may I take a photograph with you? You nodded with a smile, allowing the tourists to approach for photos, cooperating throughout the entire process without anyone being turned away. A single phrase answered every request. Netizens in the live broadcast room saw this and teased, Taoist Master, have you transformed into an NPC? Approaching you triggers a dialogue prompt. I am going to board a plane to Longhu Mountain immediately to request a photo with the Taoist Master. There were even tourists posting videos of their photos with you online, which garnered tens of thousands of likes within just a few minutes, along with thousands of comments. Half an hour later, the photo session finally concluded. You continue to move forward, following the Hall Master. Mom, what is that? Chiki held out her chubby hand, pointing toward an ancient architectural structure in the distance that held a large bell, asking out of curiosity. The Hall Master turned to introduce it. That is the bell tower among the bell and drum towers. There is also a drum tower to the west. The two structures combined form the bell and drum towers. The ancient bell is what the Taoists use to keep time. Thank you, Uncle. Chiki nodded obediently. After passing the bell and drum tower, at the center of the plaza stood a massive bagua platform, emitting an aura that shook the surroundings. This was also the location where the most visitors gathered. On one side of the plaza, a towering parasol tree stretched toward the heavens with lush, sprawling branches. Hanging from these branches were countless red silk ribbons inscribed with various blessings. Many visitors stood in line, waiting for their turn to hang their own red ribbons. Is that used for making wishes? Xiao Yu asked. Not exactly. The sect leader shook his head. This parasol tree was planted by the Heavenly Master over 500 years ago, intended for bestowing blessings. The red silk ribbons in the visitors' hands are blessing pouches. They can be used to write down wishes regarding destiny and connections. Health and longevity can also be sought by hanging these on the tree. Wow, I want to go write one too. Xiao Yu's eyes lit up as she immediately ran to join the queue. Most young women are particularly drawn to such rituals of prayer, and even if they remain skeptical, they are often willing to try it at least once. Chi-Chi also wanted to participate, and Wu Shue quite naturally followed her into the line. Will you not give it a try, Taoist? The sect leader looked toward you. You gazed up at the parasol tree, heavily adorned with prayer pouches, and spoke with indifference. This Taoist has always believed only in himself. If one has needs, one should attain them personally. These illusory and vague prayers are hollow. It is better to achieve them with one's own hands. Rather than pleading with the heavens, it is better to rely on one's own strength. Very quickly, both Xiao Yu and Chi-Chi finished hanging their blessing pouches. Chi-Chi, what did you wish for? You smiled and patted her head. Chi tilted her small face, offering a radiant smile. Chi-Chi hopes that Mother Taoist brother and sister Xiao Yu will be happy every day. A sense of warmth flooded your heart. You then looked toward Xiao Yu, who gave you a mischievous smile. Taoist, if you speak your wish aloud, it will no longer come true. Fellow Taoist, this is merely a guest room within the establishment. Conditions are limited, so I hope you will overlook any shortcomings. The sect leader led you all to the area reserved for visitors. Due to your special status, your accommodations were far superior to those provided to the average visitor. The facilities were well appointed, and all necessary amenities were provided. If you have any needs, feel free to call me at any time. The sect leader handed over the contact information. Very well, take it. The hall master took only 2 steps before turning back. That is right, Daoist Qingyang. There is a lecture in the main hall every evening at 7 o'clock. If you have the time, you are welcome to attend. Understood. If this Daoist finds the time, I shall be there, you replied. After parting ways with the hall master, you, Xiao Yu, and the others returned to your quarters. The room was not particularly spacious, but it was fully furnished. A sudden wave of exhaustion washed over you. During the day, you had unleashed the Five Thunders orthodox method to drive away the beast horde. At the time, you had felt only exhilaration, but now you realized that with your current cultivation, a single execution of the Five Thunders orthodox method was your absolute limit. You dragged your weary body onto the bed, produced the remaining spirit herbs, and sat in a cross-legged position. Holding the spirit herbs in your hands, you channeled the Taoist manual, the Sun Zi Tian. In an instant, streams of pure spiritual energy surged forth from the herbs, pouring into your body and nourishing your meridians. You know not how much time had passed, but when you opened your eyes, the sky outside the window was as dark as ink. After that period of cultivation, the fatigue had vanished, replaced by a surge of renewed vigor. Ding! Congratulations to the host for raising the reputation of the Taoist faith. The sound of the system notification filled you with joy. These Tao points must have come from the recognition of the netizens in the livestream. The points refreshed daily, and this time, the reward was double that of the previous occasion. Without hesitation, you immediately initiated the draw. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Zhongyi morning and evening scripture. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Emperor's 9 Cauldrons Divine Elixir Manual. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining Spirit Stones. You stared at the rewards you had drawn, your heart filled with profound astonishment. The Zhongyi morning and evening scripture can calm the mind and nourish the spirit. Frequent recitation can purge the mind of all distracting thoughts. The Emperor's 9 Cauldrons Divine Elixir Manual, however, is a legendary treatise on alchemy. It is said that Zhang Daling once obtained only a single page of this text, yet he used it to refine the Longhu Immortal elixir. The book records various alchemical arts, such as the Xuanwang method, the elixir transformation method, and even formulas for refining the elixir of immortality. It is only a pity that the necessary ingredients for these recipes have long been forgotten by the world. Even the Longhu elixir mentioned within is considered merely a low-grade pill in comparison to the rest. Knock, knock, knock. The sound of tapping at the door interrupted your train of thought. You rose to open the door, and there stood Xiao Yu. Daozhong, it is time for dinner. We can head to the dining hall now. Let us go, you nod in agreement. It was indeed the proper time for the evening meal. The place where one dines within the Taoist temple is known as the Guozai Hall, or simply the Guo Hall. Leaving the reception room, you were accompanied by numerous tourists along the path, all heading toward the hall to dine. Before long, a structure exuding an ancient and profound atmosphere appeared before your eyes. On the plaque, the 3 large characters for Guozai Hall stood out with striking prominence. Inside the hall, it was packed with people, yet it remained eerily quiet. Aside from the clinking of bowls and chopsticks, one could barely hear a whisper. The crowd consisted mostly of tourists, with a few resident Taoists mixed among them. The business of this dining hall is truly flourishing. Xiao Yu looked at the crowd of tourists with great astonishment. After collecting your food, the 4 of you sat around a table served with white rice, braised pork, green vegetables, and a bowl of tofu soup. The serving of braised pork was generous, and upon seeing it, Chiki's mouth began to water as she immediately started devouring the meal. Xiao Yu looked at the dishes and then at you, her expression filled with bewilderment. Daozhong, I thought Taoists were forbidden from eating meat and strictly adhered to a vegetarian diet. Why is this meal so lavish? 1 million netizens in the livestream room raised the same question, and comments began to flood the screen. Indeed, are Taoists not supposed to abstain from animal products? This braised pork smells far too delicious. The Daozhang's meal is even better than what I have at home. The instant noodles in my hand suddenly lost their appeal. You smile and explain that the prohibition against animal products applies to Buddhist monks, whereas Taoists have few such restrictions, with only 4 types of meat strictly forbidden. One does not eat beef because of its virtue, dog meat because of its loyalty, black carp because of its filial piety, or wild geese because of their fidelity. Xiao Yu and the netizens were suddenly enlightened. So it turns out Taoists are not strictly vegetarian, they simply have their own specific set of taboos. After finishing the meal, you stepped out of the hall. A melodious bell chime suddenly echoed from the distance. You checked your watch, noting it was exactly 7 o'clock, and remarked that you were preparing to go to the main hall for the evening lecture. Do you wish to accompany me? Daozhong Gage, I want to go. Kiki immediately raised her hand in excitement. Xiao Yu also nodded, saying, I am quite interested in the Taoist scriptures as well. Let us go and listen. As the third Inside the main hall, the towering statues of the 3 Pure Ones sat upon a high dais, their golden leat shimmering with majestic authority. Looking down upon all living beings, incense smoke curled and drifted, permeating the vast hall. Nearly 1,000 Taoist priests in gray robes knelt on cushions, their hearts focused and heads bowed before their wooden percussion instruments. At the very front, the venerable Grand Master Zhang, clad in purple robes, was personally offering incense to the 3 Pure Ones. All those behind him knelt in succession. The scene was grand, and the atmosphere was solemn. As you gazed upon the scene before you, your heart stirred with emotion. Back then at the Qinglong Taoist temple, there were only you and your master in the evenings. It was bitterly cold, forming a stark contrast to the lively and solemn spectacle before you. Outside the main hall, thousands of devotees gathered, waiting in silence for the chanting to commence. The viewers in the livestream were astonished. Seeing thousands of people present, they marveled at how many followers the Daoist faith possessed, having never paid much attention to it before, and felt their horizons were truly broadened today. Compared to the grand ceremonies of Buddhism, this spectacle was slightly lacking. But for the Daoist tradition, this was the pinnacle of scale. Having finished the incense offering, Grandmaster Zhang returned to his cushion and knelt, leading the 1,000 priests to begin the evening ritual. The sound of wooden percussion resonated, and the rhythmic, synchronized chanting echoed throughout the hall, ringing clearly in the ears of every person present. In this fleeting moment, the world seemed to fall silent. Everyone was immersed in the sound of the chants, their expressions filled with reverence. Yet you found yourself frowning slightly. Deep down, you thought to yourself that this chanting sounded somewhat peculiar. For both Taoist priests and monks, chanting scriptures in the evening is inherently dry and monotonous, much like a student reciting lessons at dawn. The scriptures are profound and difficult to grasp. Unless one truly harbors a deep love for them, it is exceedingly difficult to be fully absorbed in the practice. Even with Grandmaster Zhang leading, the chanting of these priests was merely loud. It possessed the form but lacked the spirit. Devoid of the intrinsic rhythm and inherent power of the scriptures, ordinary believers might not distinguish the difference, but you, being a practitioner yourself, discerned the flaws at a single glance. Their recitation was nothing more than a mechanical imitation. They had not truly grasped the profound meaning embedded within the scriptures. What was even more coincidental was that they were chanting the very morning and evening recitation sutras that you had just acquired. Your own comprehension of these scriptures far surpassed anything they could compare to. About half an hour later, Grandmaster Zhang set down his percussion mallet, slowly rose to his feet, and uttered, "May the boundless blessings of the Tao be upon you. Next, everyone shall perform the evening prayers on their own." He looked upon the group of disciples, a smile of satisfaction evident on his face. In his eyes, the evening ceremony had been absolutely perfect. Surely the disciples must have grasped the profound allure of the Taoist scriptures, and the devotees outside the hall must have been equally immersed in the experience. Yet he remained oblivious to the fact that many disciples had grown weary long ago, enduring the ceremony only out of respect for the Heavenly Master's authority, wishing in their hearts for the evening to come to an end as quickly as possible, much like lazy young employees in the mortal world, shirking their duties whenever the opportunity arose. Before departing, the old Heavenly Master Zhang looked at you, nodding with a faint smile. You responded with a polite bow. The old Heavenly Master Zhang mistook your gesture as praise for his leadership. His smile deepened, and he turned to leave, radiating a sense of pride. As soon as the old Heavenly Master Zhang disappeared, the disciples, no longer feeling constrained, began to slacken in their efforts, the sound of the chanting becoming increasingly chaotic, reaching an intolerable level. After listening for a short while, you lost all interest in remaining. Among these Daoists, only the old Heavenly Master Zhang and a few yellow-robed Daoists chanted with any true meaning. The rest were merely going through the motions, and staying any longer would be a waste of time. You turned and headed toward the guest quarters, while Xiaoyu and Qi Qi chose to stay behind to continue listening. On the way, you took out your phone to check the live stream. The screen flooded with requests from netizens. "Daoist Master, are you dissatisfied with the evening chanting? I beg the Daoist Master to chant just once. I wish to hear your voice. The Daoist Master's cultivation realm is too high. Perhaps their manner of chanting does not suit your standards." The corners of your mouth twitched in helplessness, though you did not take it to heart. The evening meditation and chanting were already part of your plan, and from now on, you would persist in reciting the scriptures every morning and evening to test the effects of the daily morning and evening chanting discipline. Passing through an archway, just as you were about to enter the guest quarters, you caught sight of a lark perched upon a rock, with several tourists nearby holding their phones to take pictures. The clear, crisp sound of birdsong drifted through the forest. The environment of Longhu Mountain was far superior to that of Qinglong Mountain. With a sudden tremor in your heart, you walked straight into the courtyard of the guest house. The guest courtyard was spacious and serene, occasionally graced by passing pilgrims, and in the center stood a towering pine tree with lush foliage, an ideal spot to seek shade. You had intended to chant sutras within your room, but found the light to be rather dim. Even with the lamps lit, it was insufficient, so you proceeded directly beneath the pine tree, sat in a cross-legged position, and retrieved the wooden fish from your luggage. Taking a deep breath, you centered your heart and calmed your mind, and as the mallet in your hand struck the wooden fish, the very moment the sound resonated, the entire courtyard instantly fell into absolute stillness. The rustling of the bamboo forest, the melodious chirping of birds, and the chatter of pilgrims, every sound and every fleeting moment fell into utter silence. A lark outside the courtyard tilted its head, its eyes filled with confusion. Pilgrims who had been taking photographs halted their movements, turning their gaze toward the source of the sound. Immediately following this, you began to chant the sutras, your cadence measured and rhythmic. The chanting and the striking of the wooden fish blended in perfect harmony, intertwined with order, melodic and pleasant to the ear, the sound ringing crisp and clear, bringing tranquility to the 10 directions, stilling the rivers and seas, casting a veil of mist over the mountains. All who heard it felt their bodies and minds purified as their distracting thoughts simply vanished. You were the one chanting with sincerity and reverence, the power of the scripture nurturing your spirit. Pilgrims passing by were captivated by the mellifluous chanting, stopping to listen with expressions of pure serenity, none daring to cause a disturbance. Within the livestream, nearly 1 million viewers fell into absolute silence, with not a single comment appearing on the screen. Everyone was immersed in the resonance of your chanting, their souls seemingly cleansed. At this moment, the evening service in the main hall had concluded, and the Daoist priests, as if relieved of a heavy burden, began to disperse one by one. Having finished his final tasks, the hall master intended to return to his quarters, but he suddenly recalled that he had forgotten to inform you of the time for tomorrow's morning chanting. He had observed earlier that fellow Daoist Qingyang was listening with great focus. Surely he had come to recognize the Daoist scriptural heritage of our Longhu Mountain. Though his own Daoist arts were profound, the inherited scriptures of their sect were certainly no mere vanity. With a sense of pride in his heart, the hall master turned and headed toward the guest courtyard. He quickly arrived at the courtyard entrance, but before he could cross the threshold, the sound of the wooden fish and the chanting left him frozen in place. This was the Orthodox daily morning and evening chanting liturgy. The hall master's expression shifted drastically. He had been reciting these scriptures for over 20 years and knew them by heart, yet the chanting before him, every word was a polished gem, every sentence flowed with perfect clarity. The profound meanings of the scriptures, once so cryptic, were now entirely illuminated. It felt as if a long-clogged channel had suddenly been dredged and cleared. This overwhelming sense of clarity brought a profound comfort to his entire being. As the chanting continued and the rhythm of the wooden fish drifted through the air, the Daoist priests who had just concluded their morning prayers stopped as they passed by. First came a flicker of bewilderment, then expressions of pure transcendence dawned upon their faces. They gradually became immersed in the rhythm of the chant. Normally, they deeply resented the act of scripture recitation, often finding it an unbearable chore. It was for no other reason than the fact that the scriptures were inherently dry, often inducing nothing but headaches. Yet the chanting they heard now was not only devoid of boredom but genuinely captivating. It was not merely the melodious tone of the chanter, but the very essence of the scriptures themselves. Although the deep truths were difficult to grasp immediately, they seemed to resonate with a celestial rhythm. It birthed a feeling of such inner peace, as if an immortal were gently calming the spirit from above. A true tranquility of the soul. Gradually, a crowd of Daoist priests who had finished their practice gathered outside the guest hall. They surrounded the exterior, listening intently, more focused and entranced than they had ever been while listening to the old heavenly master Zhang. Inside the guest hall, many pilgrims were also deeply drawn in by the sound of the chanting. Following the source of the melody, they discovered you sitting cross-legged beneath a pine tree. Your hand moved gently, striking the wooden fish. The gathered crowd of pilgrims moved forward, but as they reached a distance of 10 meters, they all instinctively stopped. They all yearned to move closer to hear more clearly, yet they feared that doing so might disturb your recitation. Inside the guest hall, the pilgrims stood ring upon ring, listening in rapt silence. Outside the hall, the corridors were packed with Daoist priests gazing from afar. The path was a sea of gray robes as far as the eye could see. Were it not for the strict prohibition against stepping on the grass, the lawn itself would likely have been filled with people. Hundreds of Taoist priests listened to your chant, lost in a trance from which they could not awaken. At the same time, in the alchemy room, the old heavenly master Zhang arrived for his usual inspection. Seeing his disciples diligently refining their medicinal elixirs, the old heavenly master Zhang nodded in satisfaction. He then stepped forward, approaching the statue of the Grand Master Zhang Doling, and offered 3 sticks of incense. Long ago, Zhang Doling had selected this auspicious plot of land. After naming it Longhu Mountain, he established the Zhengji sect here, using it to refine the legendary Longhu elixir. It is said that in ancient times, when Zhang Daoling successfully refined the elixir, the sky revealed visions of a dragon and tiger intertwined, a spectacle that shook the world. As years passed, the Daoist faith withered, relying solely on the Longhu Mountain tourist site to maintain a meager existence. Yet, as the 112th Heavenly Master, how could old Heavenly Master Zhang not yearn to revitalize the Daoist faith and restore the prestige of Longhu Mountain? Regrettably, his strength was insufficient, and burdened by his advanced age, he found himself truly powerless to act. Presently, his sole remaining wish was to successfully refine the Longhu elixir, the same pill the founding masters once crafted to bring glory to the sect, before his final days. He wished to show the world that the Daoist faith had not yet vanished into the annals of history. Upon exiting the alchemy room, old Heavenly Master Zhang looked up at the sky and realized that once again there was no moon. For the past few days, the moon seemed to have vanished completely whenever night fell. I should first check on fellow Daoist Qingyang. I wonder if he has settled in comfortably. With a gentle smile, old Heavenly Master Zhang walked toward the guest quarters. As he neared the room, he caught sight of a large crowd of disciples gathered outside, and he could not help but knit his brows. "What are you all watching?" Old Heavenly Master Zhang called one of the disciples over and asked in confusion. Reporting to the Heavenly Master, someone in the guest room is chanting scriptures. It sounds incredible. Chanting scriptures? Old Heavenly Master Zhang was taken aback. He pushed through the crowd with a puzzled expression. As he moved closer, the sound of the chanting grew increasingly clear. Old Heavenly Master Zhang suddenly froze. The confusion on his face vanished, instantly replaced by shock and disbelief. As the scripture reached its climax, the surrounding crowd became completely immersed, their faces filled with a look of pure serenity. Suddenly, the sound of chirping echoed through the woods. From the forest, flock after flock of birds took flight. There were songbirds of every imaginable kind. The sheer number of birds was so vast that they nearly blotted out the sky. The clear, melodious, and resonant chirping of the birds harmonized with the chanting, creating a sound that was unexpectedly beautiful rather than chaotic. In fact, embellished by the birdsong, the chanting became even more solemn and possessed a profound, piercing power. 10,000 birds soared overhead, their voices weaving into the chant in a truly magnificent spectacle. The sight left old Heavenly Master Zhang, who had just arrived, stunned into silence. His aged face was etched with absolute astonishment. However, the others were so deeply entranced by the scriptures that they seemed oblivious to the changes around them, eyes still closed in tranquil enjoyment. Yet, from that moment on, the chanting seemed to resonate with even greater beauty. The viewers in the livestream, however, were captivated by this miraculous scene. What in the world is happening? Where did all these birds come from? It seems this entire flock of birds has been drawn here by the Daoists chanting. 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix, a truly magnificent sight. What is that jet black swarm approaching? Crows, it is a swarm of crows. From the horizon, the cries of birds echoed, mournful and grotesque, yet possessing an overwhelming momentum. This bizarre cacophony instantly jolted everyone into alertness. Ordinary birdsong, even when not melodic, is usually clear, yet these cries sent an inexplicable chill down one's spine. What could this be? Those who had been startled looked up to see 10,000 birds circling above, filled with astonishment. But soon they realized these shrill cries were not coming from the birds circling overhead. Following the sound, they saw a massive pitch-black mass surging rapidly toward them under the veil of night. The scale was immense. It was enough to blot out the sky and cover the earth. What in the heavens is that? Could that dark foul swarm actually be birds? It seems they are crows. As the dark mass drew nearer, the crowd finally saw them clearly. The entirety of that jet-black cloud consisted of crows. Under the gloomy night sky, the crows blotted out the heavens as they slowly descended. Their blood-red pupils struck terror into the hearts of all who beheld them. Even the travelers and Daoist priests retreated in fear, not daring to look directly at them, let alone the other birds. The 10,000 birds that had been circling above the guest chambers in tribute scattered in a panicked frenzy, making way for the flock of crows. They landed on the eaves, heads bowed in submission as if welcoming a king. After tyrannically seizing the territory of the other birds, the crows ceased their cries and circled silently overhead. They bowed their heads, seemingly listening to the chanting of scriptures. The sudden appearance of the crows left everyone stunned and bewildered, yet gripped by a profound sense of dread. Only Elder Celestial Master Zhang, standing outside the guest chambers, saw his pupils constrict. His heart was filled with such intense shock that his entire body trembled. Celestial Master? Celestial Master? It was only when the other Daoist priests regained their senses that they noticed Elder Celestial Master Zhang bowing respectfully with hands clasped. However, they observed that the Elder Celestial Master, who was always so composed and benevolent, had lost the smile from his face, replaced entirely. 3,000 crows descended like an army preparing for battle, causing monarchs and ministers alike to retreat, an omen that shook the world. Old Master Zhang's voice trembled almost uncontrollably. If one who can harmonize human spirit with nature through scripture is called a Grand Master, then the scene before them was truly that of an immortal descending upon the mortal realm. As the celestial scriptures were chanted, all who heard them could only bow their heads in reverence. Ordinary observers might assume the creatures drawn to this place were merely common birds, no different from any others. But old Master Zhang, who was deeply versed in the Daoist scriptures, knew full well that attracting so many crows was an impossibility. It was a spectacle he had only glimpsed briefly in ancient texts. Because crows differ from common birds, possessing profound spiritual intuition, to command them with mere scripture is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Yet before him there gathered a literal sea of black. They hovered in the air above the guest room, blotting out the sky, all drawn here by the resonance of the scriptures. Beneath the veil of night, pairs of blood-red eyes glowed, and combined with their massive numbers, they appeared from afar like countless crimson embers suspended in the void, profoundly eerie and terrifying. Anyone walking out tonight would surely be frightened to the point of losing their composure. Daoist priest, have all these crows gathered here solely because of your chanting? Did they not say that after the founding of the nation, nothing was permitted to manifest spirits? I have witnessed the 100 birds paying homage, but these 3,000 crows are something I see for the very first time. Gradually, the evening prayer session concluded. You slowly opened your eyes, but in the next moment you were stunned, not by fear, but because this surreal scene was truly overwhelming. The sky was filled with crows, while the eaves and courtyard walls were occupied by various other birds. Below, the ground was packed with tourists and passing Daoists. It was a magnificent scene, yet the small guest room felt somewhat cramped. The evening chanting has ended, all may disperse now. Your thoughts stirred, and you lightly flicked your sleeves. Instantly, a gentle breeze swept through the area. It felt as if an invisible colossal hand was guiding them, compelling them to take flight and ascend into the heights. Witnessing this, the more than 1 million viewers in the livestream could not help but widen their eyes in shock. This cannot be happening, can it? The Daoist priest speaks a single sentence, and this flock of crows takes flight in such perfect unison? With a flick of his sleeve, 10,000 crows take to the skies. Words follow the law, Daoist. If this is not the Daoist arts, then what is? Is such a thing even logical? As you swept your horsetail whisk, the first flock had already flown away, yet those crows circled back, landing directly before you. It was clear they did not understand, nor did they wish to leave. Seeing this, a look of distress crossed your face. Tonight's scripture chanting has concluded. Even if you wish to hear more, there is truly nothing left. Return tomorrow. Good. Upon hearing these words, the largest crow, the leader of the flock, actually replied in human speech, though its tone was somewhat peculiar. The other crows let out joyful cries before taking flight one after another. In an instant, the dark, oppressive shadow finally dissipated, and the suffocating pressure vanished. It appears that this morning and evening scripture recitation of the Zhengyi sect truly carries profound efficacy. Feeling a subtle sublimation within your body, a flicker of joy arose in your heart. This act of chanting was distinct from the seated meditation you practiced in the past. Though your cultivation base did not increase as rapidly as it did when practicing the Shanzi Heaven Manual, at this very moment your soul felt as though it had ascended, refined and clarified. Your mind was sharp and every trace of distracting thought had vanished. Furthermore, the chanting itself seemed to be imbued with spirituality, possessing the power to draw in living creatures. Did I hear that correctly just now? That crow actually spoke human language, I heard it too. The crow even replied to the Daoist priest, saying, "Good, aren't only parrots supposed to mimic speech? How can a crow speak as well?" Anyone with a modicum of knowledge knows that crows are naturally capable of speech. They rely on their syrinx to produce sounds, and much like parrots, they are capable of mimicry. It is simply that they are not as aesthetically pleasing as parrots, and since they often appear in deep mountains and possess great intelligence, the Gulong Kingdom did not choose them to be their national bird. After you finished tidying your belongings, you were intercepted by numerous tourists wanting to take photos before you could even return to your guest room to rest. By the time the photos were finished, it was already late into the night, and it was then that you noticed Grandmaster Zhang had not yet departed. Daoist friend Qingyang, I have listened to this evening's scripture recitation. It was truly extraordinary. Grandmaster Zhang's voice carried a hint of agitation. The shock within his heart had yet to subside. Having studied the Tao for 40 years and listened to countless scriptures, I have never encountered anyone who could reach your realm, not even half of what you have attained. Daoist friend Qingyang, I have a request that may seem disrespectful. I wish to invite you to the main hall to lecture on the morning liturgy for our Longhu Mountain disciples. I beg of you. Before the Grand Master, he cupped his hands and bowed, his attitude filled with reverence and his tone brimming with sincerity. This caused the Zhengyi sect disciples, who had not yet dispersed, to tremble, their faces filled with astonishment as they stared at their own Grand Master. In their hearts, the status of Grandmaster Zhang was paramount, and he was a man who truly commanded such respect. Earlier today, it was because you saved Longhu Mountain that the old Celestial Master knelt to express his gratitude. Yet, at this moment, the old Celestial Master once again bowed and pleaded with you, requesting only that you preach a single session of scriptures to the disciples of Longhu Mountain. In an instant, the Daoist priests were moved to tears, their hearts filled with gratitude, and they simultaneously made a silent vow. They would surely revitalize the Daoist sect and restore the prestige of Zhengyi Temple to its peak. I am deeply honored, you said with a smile, bowing your hands in return. Truth be told, men like the old Celestial Master Zhang are truly rare. To cast aside the dignity of a Celestial Master for the sake of his disciples, this caused your impression of the old Celestial Master to rise significantly. Many thanks. The old Celestial Master bowed his head deeply once again. The hour is late. I shall no longer disturb your rest, fellow Daoist. After bidding him farewell, you returned to your room. Mommy, a man just gave me a piece of candy. In the guest room, Chiki said to her mother with a flushed face. And what did you do? Chiki remembered well her mother's instructions not to accept anything. I didn't take it, Chiki replied with great pride. You did well, Chiki. Wu Zhu looked at her adorable daughter and smiled with satisfaction. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully preaching and imparting wisdom. You have gained 20,000 Dao points. You are currently preparing to cultivate. Startled by the sudden sound, you wondered how this could happen, as the daily tally had already been settled today. You realized that during the evening prayer there were countless tourists and thousands of Daoist priests listening to your sermon. This reminded you of the conditions for obtaining Dao points. Any act of preaching, imparting wisdom, or elevating the reputation of the Daoist religion qualifies. The previous 83,000 Dao points were gained via the livestream, while these 20,000 Dao points were earned from the crowd of tourists just now. The livestream had nearly 2 million viewers, yet the scene just now held at most 3,000 to 4,000 people, and the Dao points received were comparable. It appears the benefits from offline interactions far outweigh those from online ones. Looking at the more than 30,000 Dao points, you did not hesitate. You immediately initiated the draw. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Spirit Stones. You have obtained the Divination chapter of the 5 Arts of the Daoist Gate, granting you the ability of divine calculation. Observe the heavens and earth, divining the fortunes of heaven and earth, interpreting the signs of destiny. one by one. Recalling the Shan technique received previously, which allows one to cultivate through meditation, and adding this Bu technique, you dare not imagine what would unfold once all 5 arts of the Daoist gate are gathered. Shan Yi and the arts of destiny are considered supreme divine abilities within the Daoist path, encompassing all things in the world and possessing such profound mystery that an ordinary practitioner, even after a lifetime of study, might fail to master even one of them. Yet you have already comprehended 2. Suppressing the agitation in your heart, you immediately sit cross-legged on the bed and begin to cultivate. For tomorrow morning, you must conduct the morning scriptures for the disciples at the temple. The next morning, as the sky had barely begun to brighten, you rose early. After washing your face, you discovered the hall master was already waiting outside your guest room. Having received orders from the great celestial master Zhang the previous evening, he came early this morning to escort you to the main hall to conduct the morning prayers. Just then, Xiao Yu walked out of the room. You told her that this humble Taoist must lecture on the scriptures for the disciples of Zhengyi Temple today. You asked if she would like to watch. Xiao Yu nodded joyfully. You originally intended to call for Qi as well, but seeing that their door remained closed, you assumed they were likely still asleep. After all, the sun had only just begun to emerge. In the main hall, the Taoist disciples had already gathered, arriving earlier than usual. Infinite blessings of the boundless celestial venerable Taoist friend Qingyang, please enter. It is a bother to you, you replied, to which they answered, it is no trouble, it is but a small matter. After exchanging greetings with the great celestial master Zhang, you sit cross-legged before the statues of the 3 pure ones, facing the gathered disciples, and begin the morning lecture. Following the discourse heard outside the guest rooms last night, many Taoists have fundamentally changed their perception of you. At the very least, you deserve to be treated with such respect by the celestial master. However, there remained a few who had not yet heard your lecture and were filled with doubt and suspicion. Why should a Taoist of their own age, or perhaps even younger, be qualified to lecture them on the scriptures? What right did he have? Yet, as they listened, everyone was gradually drawn in. It seemed that the Taoist scriptures were not as difficult to grasp as they had thought, and by the time the session concluded, everyone wore an expression of regret. Taoist Master, is there more? We still wish to hear more. Thank you, Taoist Master, for your time. You bowed in return to the great celestial master to express your gratitude. You waved your hand dismissively, indicating that it was of no consequence. After all, helping the Zhengyi Temple improve the caliber of its disciples is equivalent to indirectly strengthening the power of the entire Taoist sect. Taoist friend Qingyang, this old Taoist has nothing else to offer, but please accept this token. I hope you do not find it lacking. Just as old celestial master Zhang reached out to retrieve the item, a figure suddenly burst into the room. The individual's words immediately commanded the attention of everyone present. Taoist Master Qingyang, something is wrong. Qi has gone missing. Wushu was breathless, her face twisted in distress, her expression filled with profound anxiety and unease. What? Xiao Yu was startled and hurried forward. Although she had only spent a few days with Qi, the child's adorable, gentle demeanor and sensible nature had endeared her to everyone, making it impossible not to care for her. The sect master and old celestial master Zhang turned pale at the news, demanding, when did Qi go missing and where was she last seen? You furrowed your brows and asked calmly, yesterday, because we had endured so much, everyone was exhausted and we returned to our rooms. After bathing, I saw that Qi was asleep, so I went to bed as well. But when I woke up this morning, I discovered that Qi was gone. I searched the nearby guest rooms, but there was no trace of her. Qi has never been like this. Whenever she wakes up, she always informs me before going anywhere and waits for my permission. There is absolutely no way she would have left quietly like this. Taoist Master, I beg you, you must find Qi. I cannot bear to lose her again. Wushu pleaded through choked sobs, even attempting to kneel, but you reached out in time to support her and help her stand. Before you could speak, old celestial master Zhang issued a grave command. Disciples of Zhengyi Temple, mobilize at once and find the child named Qi for this old Taoist. Even if you have to turn Zhengyi Temple upside down, you must find her. After issuing the order, the sect master described the girl's appearance. Thousands of Taoist disciples immediately began a thorough carpet-style search, determined to bring Qi back. This was not only for your sake, but to uphold the honor of Longhu Mountain. You were an honored guest, and you had shown them great kindness. Now that your companion had vanished within Longhu Mountain, if they failed to find her, old celestial master Zhang would have failed you, and he would have no face left to show. He began by searching the nearby guest rooms. 2 hours later, Zhengyi Temple had mobilized its entire force, scouring the area in a massive systematic search. This spectacle left the visiting tourists in utter astonishment. What exactly could the Taoist masters of Zhengyi Temple be searching for to cause such a commotion? Yet, 2 hours later, after having thoroughly searched more than half of Zhengyi Temple, there was still no sign of Qi. Taoist Master, I beg of you, I cannot lose Qi again. Seeing that the search efforts had yielded no results, Wushu was on the verge of collapse, tears welling in her eyes as she knelt before you. She pleaded incessantly, her voice growing hoarse with grief. Yet you were no immortal. You possessed no divine guidance to reveal her location. You could not locate Qi. It was impossible to conjure a human being out of thin air. Just then, the hall master came panting heavily, sprinting from the direction of the back mountain. I found it! I found it! This Taoist has discovered a shoe belonging to lay practitioner Qi. The hallmaster held up a small pink shoe adorned with a Mickey Mouse print, shaking it in his hand. Where did you find it? The back mountain. Celestial Master Zhang asked, his voice trembling with agitation. But the hallmaster's response felt like a basin of icy water cast upon him. One must realize that the Longhu mountain range is vast, and the Zhengyi Guan sect occupies less than 1% of its total area. The back mountain in particular is an untamed primeval forest. Not only is its expanse immense, but the mountains are also home to numerous wild beasts. Furthermore, it is a place where few souls dare to tread. Searching for a person in the back mountain would be akin to looking for a needle in the vast ocean. Lay practitioner Cheeky Fear. Celestial Master Zhang looked at Wu Xie with a face full of shame, letting out a weary, helpless sigh. Though the Celestial Master did not finish his sentence, his crestfallen expression made his meaning clear to Wu Xue. In an instant, her heart felt as though it had frozen. She slumped to the ground, strengthless, her tear-streaked face reflecting pure despair and helplessness. Lay practitioner, do you recall Kiki's birth horoscope? You took the shoe, confirmed it belonged to Chi-Chi, then turned to face Wu Xue and asked. I do. Wu Xie was stunned. Though she did not fully understand your intent, she recited Chiki's birth horoscope in a gravelly voice. The very next second, you held the shoe in your left hand while your right hand moved in a blur, forming intricate hand seals, all while chanting incantations under your breath. This display left everyone present, including the viewers watching the livestream, completely stunned. What is the Daoist doing? Damn, is he actually performing a ritual to conjure chi out of thin air? Suddenly, your eyes brightened. The corner of your mouth curled upward and your gaze fixed firmly upon the back mountain. Found her, though it seems Kichi is currently in grave danger. Deep within the dense forest of the Longhu Mountain's back range, a silhouette was darting rapidly through the shadows, clutching a young girl. Suddenly, he came to a halt. Why had he arrived at this desolate demon burial ground? Gazing at the graves before him, the man in black spat on the ground. Taking the opportunity to rest, he promptly sat down upon a tombstone. If you make another sound, I will kill you. The man in black glared at Chi-Chi, who was struggling incessantly, and barked a warning. Seeing that Chi-Chi was not crying but merely shaking her head, he paused. The kidnapper seemed to perceive something, smiling with a cold, predatory interest before reaching out to tear the tape from Chi-Chi's mouth. Why aren't you crying? Do I not look terrifying enough to you? His grip was so forceful that Kiki's eyes twitched in agony. Tears welled up uncontrollably, yet she fought to suppress them. She forced a smile, intentionally trying to engage him in conversation. I cannot see your face anyway. Besides, my mother told me there are not many bad people in this world. Surely you cannot be a bad person, right? You can forget about seeing my face. Furthermore, you have guessed wrong. I am precisely the villain you fear, the man in black sneered. Without further hesitation, he pulled out his phone. He'd only managed to capture this child of a wealthy family thanks to a bald monk. Guided by the subtle hints of that monk's divination, he had tracked down the young mother and child. After investigating the pair, he discovered that this woman was the proprietor of a pharmaceutical company in the neighboring Nankang city, possessing a fortune amounting to tens of billions. Little one, do not be afraid. As long as your mother obediently provides the money, I guarantee you will return home safely. With that, the kidnapper prepared to call Wu Shou, but at that very moment, the leaves in the distant forest began to rustle. In the next heartbeat, a figure clad in azure robes descended from the sky. A moment ago, you used a single-handed incantation. Using Kiki's fallen shoe as a conduit, you divined her location and deduced that her ultimate fate was to perish. Because of this, you did not pause for a single second, rushing straight to this place. Along the way, you traveled almost entirely by flight. The old heavenly master, Xiao Yu, and the others following behind were initially able to keep pace, but seeing you traversing the forest with ever-increasing speed, they were gradually left in the dust. They could only trail behind in the direction you had vanished. Who are you? The man in black, startled, leapt to his feet and pressed his dagger against Chiki's throat. Had the blade moved even an inch further, it would have sliced through her delicate skin. Qingyang, you cast a glance at Chi-Chi, seeing she remained unharmed for the moment, before turning your gaze toward the kidnapper. You are just a destitute Daoist. I have no quarrel with you. I suggest you refrain from meddling in the affairs of others and get lost. And if this humble Daoist refuses to leave, you stared coldly at the kidnapper. If you do not leave, do not blame me for committing murder. I only want money. Give me 5 million and I will release her immediately. Note, numbering gap in original input observed, proceeding to next line. The kidnapper in black shouted his threats. With the hostage in his grasp, he feared not even the police, ready to face death together if need be. It was not that he lacked fear of death, but he knew full well that the female CEO of that pharmaceutical company would never allow her daughter to perish. Seeing you remain motionless, the kidnapper grew tired of idle chatter. The blade in his hand slid forward instantly. The sharp edge immediately cut into Chiki, and a trail of fresh blood began to flow. Chiki could not help but cry out in pain, her soft voice laced with agony. Your expression turned icy, you cursed under your breath. Accompanying a cold shout, you raised your hand to form a mystic seal. In an instant, gusts of frigid wind swept through the forest, causing the leaves to rustle as thousands fell from the branches. The kidnapper's complexion shifted, his movement stiffening. In truth, he had no intention of killing, nor did he dare to, but the moment he wounded Chiki, it was already too late. You had developed an intent to kill. Yin Realm Yama Spirit Summoning, Yin Gate open. Bursts of ghostly wind suddenly erupted from the graves behind the kidnapper. The earth cracked open, and withered, ethereal figures crawled forth from within. Though they were mostly missing limbs, a fierce, malevolent light gleamed in their eyes. With a single flick of your finger, those residual spirits lunged toward the kidnapper. Seeing you point at him, the kidnapper sneered in contempt, but before he could finish his words, the triumphant smile on his face suddenly froze. Immediately after, his pupils constricted and his entire body began to tremble uncontrollably. With a heavy thud, he collapsed to the ground, his body convulsing. Gone was his earlier arrogance and smile. In their place remained only terror and trembling. Every human possesses 3 souls and 7 spirits. Those lingering souls, having burrowed into the body of the black-clad kidnapper, began to devour his 3 spirits directly. If it were a powerful soul, the process would be instantaneous, leaving the victim a mindless husk. However, this kidnapper was forced to remain conscious, feeling every agonizing moment as his 3 spirits were consumed from within. In an instant, he felt an excruciating pain racking his entire body, yet he could not pinpoint the source of his torment. Feeling as though his mind were about to shatter, he collapsed to the ground, thrashing and convulsing violently while letting out a low, raspy groan. This sight turned Shiki's face deathly pale. She hurried toward you, the wound on her neck having been nothing more than a superficial scratch. Nevertheless, the sight of the kidnapper writhing on the ground left Shiki thoroughly terrified. You reached out to cover her eyes, turning her head away to shield her from the gruesome display. A moment later, those lingering souls emerged from the kidnapper's body, and he finally ceased his movements. His eyes were vacant, his body rendered completely lifeless as he collapsed against the earth. You dared to sit upon my grandfather's tombstone? A lingering soul, missing one leg, spat on the ground and delivered a vicious kick to the kidnapper's leg before triumphantly retreating into the fissure. Go. The kidnapper felt a sudden sharp agony in his right leg, causing it to curl inward as he gasped in cold air. Daoist priest, mother. At this moment, Wu Xiu and the venerable Heavenly Master Zhang caught up to the scene. Seeing Shiki by your side, Wu Xiu's composure completely shattered. She rushed forward, sobbing uncontrollably as she pulled Shiki into a tight embrace. Sensing her mother's arms around her, Shiki could no longer hold back, and her tears began to flow freely. Watching the mother and daughter reunited in safety, you could not help but offer a faint smile. Daoist priest, watch out. You were startled by the sudden cry. Turning around, you realized the kidnapper, who had been unable to rise, had somehow produced a firearm. Die for me. Rotten Daoist, go to hell, he spat, struggling against the overwhelming pain in his body. Gritting his teeth, the kidnapper tremblingly drew a gun from his pocket, aiming it directly at your back. Under the horrified gaze of those present, including Xiao Yu and Heavenly Master Zhang, a bullet erupted from the black muzzle, hurtling toward the back of your head. Just as everyone's faces drained of color, their hearts turning to ash, you suddenly pivoted, and in that same moment, appearing as if from thin air, you held a wooden sword in your hand. Your eyes narrowed slightly, and the millennium-old wooden sword swept through the air. With a single fluid motion, fell to the ground. To see someone slice a bullet in half with a single sword stroke, someone in the crowd cursed, their face twisted in utter disbelief and astonishment. The rest of the onlookers were equally horrified, especially Grandmaster Zhang, whose jaw nearly hit the floor. He could never have imagined that you would be capable of slicing a bullet in half, let alone with a wooden sword. From the lightning techniques displayed earlier to this astonishing display of swordsmanship, is he even human? Within the depths of Grandmaster Zhang's heart, the shock and terror continued to mount. Damn it, am I hallucinating? That bullet was sliced in two by the Daoist priest's sword. Is he really a human being? Can anything be more absurd than a wooden sword cutting a bullet in half? This scene, which defied all imagination, caused the livestream chat to explode with frantic comments. The messages were so numerous that they obscured the screen entirely, leaving nothing visible but the text. Simultaneously, the popularity of the livestream soared. The number of concurrent viewers exceeded 2 million, and the traction continued to climb incessantly. Holding the wooden sword, you walked toward the black-clad kidnapper with a cold, detached expression. Don't come any closer. Master, I was wrong. I didn't know my place. I won't resist anymore. I won't dare to do it again. Seeing you draw steadily closer, the black-clad kidnapper no longer entertained thoughts of dragging someone down to the grave with him. He had been utterly terrified out of his wits by the sight of you slicing the bullet in half. Originally, that firearm had been given to him by the bald monk. At the time, the black-clad kidnapper had assumed it was merely a toy gun. However, after the monk's prediction proved true, combined with the fact that he had been pushed into a corner, the kidnapper had decided, if he were to die, he would at least take someone down with him. He had not expected the gun to be real, but he certainly never expected you to use a wooden sword to shatter a bullet mid-air. Facing such terrifying strength, his plan to drag others into death seemed truly laughable. His entire body trembled, his hands unable to even grip the gun, which clattered to the ground as a foul stench emanated from his trousers. With a heavy thud, the kidnapper's eyes rolled back into his head, and he collapsed, rendered completely unconscious by his own paralyzing fear. From start to finish, you did not even need to strike. You had simply walked toward him. It turned out the kidnapper could not withstand the terror gnawing at his soul and had lost consciousness. You glanced at the kidnapper, sheathed your wooden sword, pulled out your phone and dialed Li Qingshan. Hello, Officer Li. I am reporting a crime. We have apprehended a child kidnapper here on the back mountain of Longhu Mountain. Please, come quickly. Understood, Daoist priest. We will be there immediately. Less than half an hour after the report, Li Qingshan arrived with a police squad. Their response time was remarkably efficient. After clarifying the situation, Li Qingshan grasped your hand and thanked you solemnly. This time, thanks to the Daoist priest, we were able to prevent a tragedy. Thank you. It was nothing. You waved your hand dismissively. Then, Daoist priest, we shall take our leave. Lately, the atmosphere in Nanjing City has felt strangely unsettling. Accidents have occurred incessantly, leaving the department with a mountain of unresolved issues. Officer Li, please travel safely. You nod your head. You watch as Li Qingshan and his men lead the kidnapper down the mountain and depart. Daoist, thank you. It was you who saved my child last time, and it is you again today. If not for you, I would be utterly lost. Saying this, Wu Shui weeps with gratitude and attempts to lead Qi in kneeling before you, but you reach out to gently steady them. As long as Qi is unharmed, that is what matters. If you ever pass through Nanjing in the future, I will surely receive you with the utmost hospitality. Amitabha. Gazing at your retreating figure, Wu Shu feels as though she has beheld an immortal descending to the mortal realm, and a flicker of profound reverence stirs within her heart. At that very same moment, at a tourist site not far from the Zhengyi Temple, Monk Kuma is feeding the koi, when his body suddenly shudders. A single bead on the Buddhist prayer necklace around his neck has shattered into dust. An intense murderous aura erupts in the eyes of Monk Kuma. Veins bulge prominently on the back of his hand. The fish feed in his grip falls instantly to the ground, scattering everywhere. The next second, countless koi swarm toward it, fighting frantically for the scraps, disregarding their own lives for a mere morsel of food. At this moment, the killing intent Monk Kuma harbors toward you has reached its zenith. You have repeatedly obstructed his plans, and now that his Buddhist relic has shattered, his final scheme is forced into further delay. Breathing heavily, Monk Kuma rises to his feet and slowly begins to walk toward the path leading down from Longhu Mountain. The mountain trail is crowded with tourists who have finished their visit at Longhu Mountain. They descend with weary expressions, leaning on walking sticks. Monk Kuma, however, veers into a nearby forest, a dense, overgrown thicket where few souls dare to tread. Qingyang, you have brought this upon yourself. This old monk does not mind ending your life before I proceed to raze Nanjing City to the ground. Monk Kuma grits his teeth, the sound grating like grinding stones. He lets out a cold, sharp huff and draws a wooden figurine from his robes no larger than his palm. It is carved in the likeness of the Maitreya Buddha. Yet, unlike the benevolent Maitreya often seen, this figurine is pitch black, with ears stretching past its shoulders and a distended belly, as if it had gorged itself on gluttony. Most unsettling is the expression on its face. The corners of its mouth stretched nearly to its ears, twisted into a smile filled with profound depravity and greed. Amitabha Om Benza Shah, Monk Kuma chants in Sanskrit, his fingers moving in a rapid blur to weave a seal. Under the weight of his incantations, the pitch-black Maitreya figurine slowly levitates. Monk Kuma bites his finger, staining the statue with his own fresh blood. It emits a sinister golden light before diving toward the earth. In the final moment before it disappears into the soil, the crazed smile on the Buddha's face tears open to the ears, revealing eyes filled with malice. Qingyang, wait for your end at my